Hello, George and Cindy.
Hello.
Hello. You're early to the meeting.
Yeah, you know, I'm kind of working at the same time, so
Hey, I'm doing this. I'm working cleaning the office. So
I didn't want to forget.
yeah, we were super busy. Did you see the thing about the HLB article?
I haven't been on the computer.
Oh no, well, before I sent an email out about it last week, I think, or something like that. The
Yeah.
we created an article on the HLB citrus disease that was reviewed and corroborated by the scientist at the California Department of Food and Agriculture. And the article is considered correct and factual as of current understanding of the disease.
Wow, cool.
And they're going to be putting a link from their website to our website.
Wow, cool.
So yeah, so that's I think that's a big deal.
Yes.
So and then I'm going to be promoting it to be put on an
Maybe newspapers.
well, yeah, and some magazines.
Uh-huh.
So that would promote the club as well.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
we're excited about that.
Yeah, it's just that I had two of my customers say, "Oh, we don't need any more units in December, but just before New Year's, hey, can you start us up again?" And oh, by the way, we ran out. So oh my God. So yeah, that's why I'm not quite finished with one more order. I just sent out one order, but I'm, I have to send out another order hopefully by tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start the next cycle again next week. So it's crazy, but hey, good job, right?
Yeah. And shipping is about to jump up for me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. FedEx went up another $1 for ground.
We're waiting until the 23rd.
Oh really?
The 23rd is where the postal rates go up, and when they go up, usually everybody else does the same thing.
Oh.
And
Frank, I bought some mango trees from Florida, and I've been able to keep them alive for about maybe a year. But one whole branch of my mango tree turned black. Is that like a arachnos or something?
mango trees are really susceptible to fungus,
Okay, fungus.
and usually because and they sort of want, it's sort of they seem to be more tropical where they want more moisture,
Uh-huh.
but then they see them dying if you get too much moisture or something. Maybe it's stagnant moisture, but if it's shipped,
Well, it's been like maybe it's gonna be 2 years, I think, because this was before COVID. So I guess maybe I've got them, kept them alive for 3 years.
well, they don't do well with cold.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So that's an issue there. And when you ship stuff, it could also get cold in the shipping, depending on how it gets routed.
yeah, yeah. So this was the year I'm gonna put them in the dirt, but just as I was getting some breathing space from work, all the weeds decided to pop up. So I have a whole field of weeds.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, well, okay, I have to like cut them down, then you know, try to dig a holes for them. But I guess the gophers are, oh yeah, you guys got that gopher traps, huh? I have
No,
to
I
put 'em
don't.
in no?
I don't have any problem with gophers myself.
Oh, but
It's rats.
rats. Oh, yeah. No, mine is gophers because we got a pest company come in and put those poisonous corn things.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to kill the rats, but not the gophers.
Mm.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm kind of all excited about actually put stuff in dirt. But now that the whole field is full of weeds, I have to kill them off first. So, oh well.
It'd be cool if the gophers only went after weeds.
You would wish, right? And my neighbors tell me we got squirrels now, and um I know we have one bunny rabbit because I see the rabbit poop, but maybe he's got a family now because there's a lot more rabbit poop.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I'm lucky we don't have any problem with the rabbits and also gophers. Of course, if the gophers could go through our clay soil, that would be scary in itself.
That's true. Yeah.
But squirrels, we have slight problem, but it's sort of kept keeping itself in check
Uh-huh.
because something usually happens to the squirrels and then we have less of them.
Uh-huh.
And then the rats, though, keep constantly, it's been at least 65 every year so far that I've been catching. And
Wow.
this year I had an issue with mice, which the rat traps for catching mice didn't work well because, the mice are so small and they won't set off the big traps, but the small traps are sort of small
Uh-huh.
compared to the size. These mice, I don't think they're small rats. I think they're just large mice, but I was using the electric traps on those. And we caught a bunch of those.
Oh. Yeah, I it's almost like, God, if I finish this batch, I can work on the garden. So I do the garden a little bit, and oh no, they ran out again. So I got to work on the units, and then okay, and then it rained like crazy, unbelievable crazy.
Well, right now, a lot of people's hillsides are getting saturated.
Yep, that's ours.
And if there's not much vegetation in it, it could break loose.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know if the ice cream bean trees have deep roots?
No, I don't.
Okay, because I got a bunch of seeds from Kathy that one meeting I went to.
Mm-hmm.
So I have maybe about 6 of them. They're growing in a little pots. And
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking rather than repot them, maybe I'll put them in the dirt. In a gopher cage, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
and then see if that would hold the soil. There's something called dirt lockers, which are like plastic half moons that you attach together, and you pound them into the
Mm-hmm.
slope, and that holds back the dirt. So I'm thinking about doing that for maybe the hillside trees and stuff, so they have some dirt. And so that's all kind of in the plans, but doggone it, all the weeds and the rain.
Yeah, and you can't go outside and work in the rain.
Yeah, exactly.
Matter of fact, tonight I got to order a pair of rubber boots for Lydia.
Well, you think if there was a Tractor Supply close by, because in Tehachapi, those things are in stock in the Tractor Supply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
I saw that on their thing, but there's nothing nearby. And one of my neighbors who orders from Tractor Supply a lot, he just placed an order last week.
oh,
And he does it when he gets a coupon that goes for free shipping.
right.
So, and they deliver here. I can't believe they deliver out to here
Wow.
from Ontario. I mean, is it
Uh-huh.
Ontario? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I got a they had a boot for $14.88 at Walmart.
Wow.
That seems pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. So Kevin McCarthy is on Hannity. So I wanted to hear that as well because he's from Bakersfield. Yep. So, the thought is that he said, hey, come anytime, but I guess he said, hey, come anytime when you're in DC. What? You mean I can't go knock on your mom's door? Come on. It's closer. But yeah, so we were talking I was saying that, that we got to hold those people accountable. So, hey, he's in Bakersfield. So that's what you hear in the background.
Mm.
And what else? Yeah. So that's the stuff about the mangoes. And then the sun I guess the Orange County chapter is asking for like Scion exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that has been growing like a crazy that I have a lot of is a Thompson seedless grape.
Mm.
And so it's a pretty common one. This puppy we've had for over 25 years, and it's just growing like a weed. And so I would say it's pretty vigorous. So I could cut some twigs, and I'm pretty sure it just put it in the dirt, and we could sell them.
Yeah.
So that's I'm like, oh my God, I don't have anything to contribute, Oh gosh. It's been like what, 7 years I've been with the rare fruit growers and still nothing.
Well, did you see what our Signwood exchange we're doing? Our Signwood exchange is completely different in a way than the other ones, is we're not limiting it. We're not limiting it to Signwood. We're not limiting it to anything plant related people can bring.
Huh.
So if people want to bring succulents, they could bring that.
Uh-huh.
If they bring some books they don't want anymore, bring that. And I think it would be more beneficial to everybody, because there's a lot of stuff people have, like old Western garden books. I got the new one. I don't want to throw away my old one because someone could use it, or maybe something. So if we just threw the stuff out and said, hey, go for this, somebody can use it. A new gardener doesn't see a difference between the old Western gardener and the new one.
That is true. I like the pictures though. I have a rose book that it's easily 30 years old. And they have the Cynthia rose in it, which you never see. And there's like 3 versions of the Cynthia rose, and this is the original.
And do you go to Lagoon Hills Nursery much?
You know what? The couple times I've been there, they're really expensive.
Well, yeah, that's known for them.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of going just because they have one of the websites says that they have a potting soil that you can put in containers that don't shrink.
Yeah, it's his potting soil is considered one of the best potting soils out there.
Uh-huh. Yeah, because
So
yeah, honestly, our dirt is really bad. So even if I put stuff in the ground, I'd have to amend it with potting soil, compost, other stuff, fertilizer, just so they won't die.
well, I would for one thing for his potting soil, I'd use for starter for sure. You know, because you can when you're starting it, it's usually the weakest when it's small.
Uh-huh.
And then that helps give it a good base. And then later, if you wanted to save money, you could go with something like um, Agua Nagua's Special D mix, which is pumice and what's the other one? I have 20 windows on my computer, different subjects. So, peat moss and sandy loam soil.
Uh-huh.
So that's the most common ingredients in it. And that would give you a good base. You also want to remember if your soil is clay, don't make too big of a hole when you plant something, because if you do a big hole, then you're just going to have a big water bucket rotting the roots out.
Uh-huh. No, we drain really well. We're fractured granite.
Okay.
Yeah. I When we first moved here, I mean, we left the hose on when we were watering the mango tree that our realtor gave us. And then 4 hours later, it didn't even puddle. So, yep, just go straight through. So, if anything, it's going to be well draining, but it's got to hold some of the water because I think it just goes straight through.
Well, I redid their website. So I copied their website and duplicated it. You
Who's
want to see
one?
what that looks like real quick?
Who's one?
Laguna Hills Nursery.
Oh, did you help them?
No, I made their since I was doing our website. For me, it works better if I have something to copy and read.
Oh, your voice is getting weird, Frank.
And I learned
Your voice is getting weird.
from there as I, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, you broke up for a while. I'm gonna have to connect my computer directly to hardwire for the meeting.
Uh-huh.
But their calendar was really messed, is ripped up, and they have a bad hosting plan. It's like if I wanted to pick the hosting plan that's they have very little control over it. They can make a basic website fine, but they only have 5 pages to go with, and they're getting billed $120 a year for 5 pages and very little email use. And then the cost to get a 5-year plan with another hosting company is $172. And you would have complete access and complete control with that. But I was trying to point out to them. I sent them an email about it, and I said, "Here's what we duplicated your website and upgraded it, and we're not charging you anything for this. We just did it. And if you want, you can have a copy of this website and use it. And if you don't want to pay for hosting, you can even do it on our account because we get unlimited hosting. So it doesn't affect us at all if you have your account on there. And if it's not going fast enough for you, you could always switch to your own plan." So, but I haven't heard back from them yet because they got some guy there who's intercepting all communications with Gary.
Uh-huh.
You call and you want to speak to him, and he won't let you speak to him.
Huh.
And I have to question whether he's actually doing this by their thing or his own thing. Because when he's like, "Okay, let me take your name." "Okay, Frank." "Okay, thanks. I'll have him call you back." how? So
Yeah, I I I mean he's literally down the street from us, and when I lived in Lake Forest, I went to their Geronimo one, and his dad was into the bonsai.
mhm.
And I did want to ask him how they did the terracing, of their plants, because uh, it's like they made their own little mounds, and it was like almost terrace, so you could have all the pots, on a level. I don't know if you saw when they were there, but I thought that was kind of cool because there was no visible means of support of the hills. They were just gravel terraced level layers.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so I thought, wow, that'd be kind of cool if I could do that. But and then they moved. Well, we moved as well. So that was like, gosh, over 20 years ago.
Yeah. Well, the problem he has with his current location is his rent's probably so expensive.
Ah,
And he also has a problem. He can't have as many customers.
really?
Well, how many people can park in his parking lot? There's 5 spaces.
Right. But there he has that little side street that you have to go on. That's close by.
Yeah, but usually that's full because of the people from the apartments nearby.
Oh. Oh, and then Chick-fil-A's open and In and Out. So that's all crazy.
Yeah.
In fact, that whole area is like all food places, which is great for us because the deal I made with my husband is once I finish a batch of my units to ship out, he has to take me out to dinner. So Farmer Boys, Chick-fil-A, In and Out. I'm rocking all those places.
No, but look at Gary's website. Look up lagunahillsnursery.com.
Uh-huh.
Look at their website. Let me know when you pull it up.
Okay. Yep, got it up.
Okay, now go to all his pages and then go back to the home page after you look at each page. Just look at each page quickly. Don't go deeper because there is no deeper. It's only those menu options at the top.
Uh-huh.
Everything on the pages, any links on there, open up documents.
Uh-huh.
They don't open up web pages, which is sort of
Yeah.
insane, isn't it?
Uh, he never struck me as being very computer savvy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but okay, but you're looking at his website, right?
Yeah.
And you also traveled back in time about 20 years at the same time, looking at the website. Okay, now go to lh.southoc. Okay, you ready?
South
OC.
South
C,
OC
okay, crfg.org.
CRFG dot
ORG.
org.
So it's basically South OC CRFG.org. So it's lh.southoccrfg.org, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, did you pull that up? Did a web page come up?
Yeah.
Okay, and then does it sort of look like Gary's but different?
Yep.
Do you see the thing on the left hand side? There's a picture of a penny.
Yep.
That is actually an embedded Google Sheet linked to a spreadsheet he could have open on his tablet or his cell phone and make changes to that sheet, and whatever is in that sheet will reflect to here. So he could have items that he wants to clearance or do whatever in that list.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's hurting him by not having an availability of what he has online. For something, we'll never find him. They will never find him ever.
Well, his is mostly word of mouth.
Yeah, but he needs to get business in any way he can. And by not having it like this, he's not going to get business. And of course, he's going to be hurting. After the COVID thing, I think nursery sales dived because, when I did the plant sale, we had tons of sales. And then this last year, it wasn't easy to get sales because people weren't actively going like they were before. And for him, he had good sales then, but now I don't think he does. And, he can put on his classes all he wants, but he's still limited. He needs more than word of mouth. And if it's free, he should, be taking advantage of that. And his website is horrible. I don't even know how he gets search rankings because every single thing on that website is contrary to Google's search ranking. If you link to a document in a web page, that doesn't count as much towards your site ranking. And if you're not updating your page a lot, it's not even it's not helping with your search ranking either. And he's not, only thing he's changing is maybe the front page, and that's it. And there's so many things wrong with this site.
Well, you should go on Saturday and talk to him. See if you can find him.
That this site here, what?
That's what you should
Well,
do.
we tried calling him. Let me go. I gotta get a cable here because my internet connection went slow on the Wi-Fi again. Wait. But this guy is interfering with when you try to call him. I'm like, hey, is Gary? I want to speak to Gary. Oh, you can't speak to Gary. Since when?
You should come down, Frank.
No, it's too far, and I'm not doing something where I'm getting any money. So
okay. Good point.
I'm helping them.
Yeah, so if I could just finish my units for this, so I'm for sure gonna get them out tomorrow. Then move on to the next problem.
Well, I got an order I have to ship from one of my customers, and they emailed about it 2 days ago asking, what's the status of this order? And they put it in their PO, they put a due date of the 12th. Well, it should take 1 day to get it, so that's fine. And I don't care if it's 1 day over either. I'm sort of busy.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so Frank, I was going to ask you a question, but I forgot already.
well, what I found out from the main CRFG?
Yeah.
They didn't think our chapter, the South Orange County chapter, would succeed.
Well, yeah, of course.
They thought it was going to fail completely. And right now, there's discussions among the powers that be at CRFG that our chapter is doing everything that should be done. And they're actually wanting to bring me in and discuss it with the board as to what to do for CRFG. Because they're having, there's so many things they're trying to do. And we are doing it with this chapter. And sort of exciting, except for you get people who are blocking it, who don't want it to happen.
Well, of course you're going to have that. I mean, look at our country, Frank.
right
That's-
now, you can't express your opinion on anything
Uh-huh.
without fear that it will be held against you later.
Well, yeah. Well, of course. But I I I think you just have to, or you're gonna die. So it's like, I'm gonna have to say it because if I don't say it, I'm gonna die. Then you don't like it. Hey, I can always say it tomorrow
Mhm.
and the next day and the next day, and then you'll find out I was right.
Well, what
Oh,
I,
oh, Frank, that,
but
that's I now remember what I was going to ask you. There's a lot of Native American, like plants that supposedly was native all the way down to like Mexico. You know, maybe in certain regions of the country. What do you think about if we try to sell those too, like grow them and sell them, or get them into the people's gardens? Because I'm into the permaculture. Uh, that's what I'm gonna do with my yard. But they say, well, there's you gotta help the hummingbirds, you gotta help the bees, and the poor hummingbirds, they aren't, some of them don't necessarily migrate,
Mhm.
so they're stuck here either because they're not full enough, or their native habitat is gone. It's a real estate development now and stuff like that. So what if you can make the hummingbird sanctuary year round, so if they don't want to move, they don't have to, you know what I mean? So like bees, um I read someone told me that you know people with allergies like me, if we ate more honey that was pollinized with the local allergens, we'd build up our immunity, and we wouldn't be down with the hay fever and all that other stuff.
well, I don't know how, um, whether or not that's true or not. Um, it's like, I gotta be really careful and stuff because like there's, the worm casting stuff, right?
Right.
The guys who do worm castings, for some reason, thinks worm casting tea is the cure to everything.
Oh, ew.
And it's like, uh, it is not holy water.
Uh-huh.
It is just the excrement of worms. It's not holy water. It hasn't been blessed by the Pope or anything.
Right.
And they're going, oh, but for HLB, the citrus disease, they should be able to spray the trees and it'll help prevent them from getting infected. And I'm like thinking, I can only imagine them injecting worm tea into their body to fight
Uh-huh.
COVID.
Yeah. Well, I read an article about the HLB being prevented by some kind of enzyme or
Peptide.
yeah, from the finger line.
Yeah, but it's not stopping it. It's just slowing it down in a controlled environment,
Aha.
and in laboratory. And they really haven't even been able to do testing. And it's
Well,
sort of hard for them to do testing because I was talking to the people at the CDFA about this, and they said, well, it's because you can't test it. It's hard to test it because you can't. The rules regarding the citrus diseases destroy the tree immediately when you discover them. So when they discover it, they can't just leave the tree with the disease in it and run this enzyme thing, this peptide in it. So everything they're saying is sort of conjecture.
uh wow. Yeah. Well, like it seems like that it
What?
blocks it the the thing blocks the pathways for the, the nutrients to go up, so
Yeah.
the tree starves. But what if you had something that unblocks it, so it keeps the flow? And
Well,
so,
see, it's blocking, the cells are live and active. And if you were to kill, then they would have to be potentially, I'm just guessing, reabsorbed into the tree if trees do that. Or does the tree continue to grow another layer, and that active growth path, active path becomes another layer. So
that's what I'm thinking. It's
but
another layer.
but if it's another layer, then what's
Kind of like scar tissue.
yeah, but if it's actively growing, as you do another layer, it's filling in that layer as well. But it's also slowing down the growth of that layer because it's interfering with the nutrient transfer.
Uh-huh. But what if there's something that kind of dissolves whatever is causing the blockage? Like
Well, they would first have to kill the insect,
uh,
and that's the issue right now. I mean, kill the bacteria.
right.
So it's hard to kill the bacteria because, for one thing, trees don't have antibodies, and they do have treatments that you can inject that will kill a bacteria, from what I'm understanding,
Right.
but it's not very long term.
Right.
So you'd
So-
have to constantly be applying this,
Right.
and you're actually doing worse by injecting it with such a toxic thing to the tree.
Oh, okay. So that's kind of what I was like pondering. I haven't killed my finger lime tree yet, and I did kill half my seedlings, more than half. But that was from not potting them. So it's like, okay, I have to get some more finger lime seedlings and maybe scatter them around the area. And then maybe eventually get them big enough that I can put my my citrus, grafted on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's different plans I have. Oh, hey, Frank, it's 7:30.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
So anyway, that's kind of all the stuff I'm doing here in between trying to finish my units.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's
I'm gonna mute myself. So
well,
you
let me
can,
see. Has anybody joined?
Kathy.
What?
Wait, Kathy looks like.
Oh, let me block her because we don't want Kathy to talk.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh, and Sam.
Let's see. What did Kathy do? Something?
Oh, I see a picture. She's got a camera.
Yeah, and it looks like a guillotine or something. The top of her head is above her or something.
A fan.
It's just a shelf and a fan. Good
Oh.
evening, everyone.
Howdy, howdy.
Okay, I gotta go get a number real quick because I want to go straight off. I don't want to go on Wi-Fi because I'm having an issue with Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Let's see.
Hey, Kathy, my ice cream bean seedlings are growing good.
So fantastic.
So, do I put them in bigger pots then, longer pots? Is that what?
Yeah, I would say that would be good. They grow really, really fast.
Oh, would you know by any chance how deep their roots are? Can I use them to hold back a hillside?
Now, I've heard that they're
Shallow.
no, I've heard that they are nitrogen fixing. but I
Right.
don't know if that means they're big roots or not. I would say they're not big roots because I have them on the side of my road, and the whole planter that they're in is maybe 3 feet deep.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it can go all the way into the ground after it goes through that planter,
Uh-huh.
but I I don't think that they're super deep growing. Not like a fig or a mulberry or something like that.
Okay.
And they've never come out. This planter's made out of concrete.
Uh-huh.
It's just pieces of old driveway. So if they were growing out, they could just send roots right out through that concrete. So I don't, you know,
Uh-huh.
I don't suspect that they're very aggressive, but they do grow fast.
Yeah, well, they're in little pots,
Mhm.
like I have like 5-inch pots, little square pots,
Yes.
and they were happy to be in there. Of course, I have to go out there after the rain. We're down to 34 degrees up here.
Wow.
I know, it's terrible. So it's like, okay, maybe I should put my crock pot on because it's right next to the kitchen window. Try to
No.
keep them warm that way.
I got some very inexpensive, you got to plug them in, but you know, those little flat
Heaters?
pads that keep things warm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I actually ordered them a couple of years ago on Amazon, and I think they were $9.99 each.
Uh-huh.
But I saw them at a um, what do they call those? Like a hydroponic shop
Uh-huh.
for $6 each.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
they actually come in a little tube that they roll up and you
Uh-huh.
unroll them. So
Oh, yeah. Okay. Because um I'm thinking, well, I'm kind of busy with our small business, but I bought a bunch of different seeds
mhm.
and I do have one of those mats, and then so I was gonna try to do the seeds, but this year I was gonna do my landscape, and now my whole yard is full of weeds. So I'll have to cut them down first. But you
I
know,
know.
with the gophers and oh wow, what to do?
It's a constant battle with little creatures.
Yeah. Now we got squirrels, and I guess
Mhm.
that one rabbit must have a family now because there's no way he can poop that much poop, rabbit poop.
Well, the rabbit poop at least will be good fertilizer.
There you go.
I had a rabbit that ate the entire strip all the way around my blood orange.
Oh
So it
no.
killed the orange, yeah. And it was probably about this big around.
Wow.
It was several years old. It's not a huge tree, but the rabbit just started eating and just walked all the way around. So what I'm going to do now is cut 1 gallon pots
Uh-huh.
up the side and then just lay the pot around the stem.
Uh-huh.
So once the tree gets bigger and it isn't bothered, I guess I can take the pots off. It's not going to hurt anything, but
Uh-huh.
kind of a low cost rabbit repellent.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
FYI regarding the gophers,
Mhm.
uh, I've tried a lot of different things, and I discovered the gopher hawk trap, and I've gotten I guess about 14 gophers so far in the last several months. So it seems
Wow.
to be pretty effective.
Go for hawk.
I think you've chased them over to my yard. Is it hard to set?
No, it's really straightforward. Basically, it's you make a hole into you find where the run is. You make
Mhm.
a little hole with it's a little cylinder device,
Mhm.
and then the trap is like a cylinder with the end is sort of a spring, and when that sort of fills the hole. And you'll see if you look on Amazon, you see, and or
Okay.
there's videos out there that show how it works. It's easy to set, and it I would say 9 times out of 10 kills the gopher. It's a very sad 10% or so where you have to finish the job yourself, but very effective, much easier to set than all the other gopher traps that I've tried. Just
Ooh,
in case you
wow.
guys are having the same issues that I do.
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
Yeah, I think all the gophers in the neighborhood hide in my yard, and so um but it's all fractured granite and I guess backfill, so it's very porous where we are. But I will try gopher hawk.
Go for a hawk, yeah. It's not, they're not cheap, but they're reusable, so I have 3 that I use to set in various places, and then, you know, when you get it in the right spot, certainly within 24 hours, sometimes within just a few hours, it trips. And it's
Oh,
very
amazing.
easy to see that it trips.
Hmm.
I was kind of thinking maybe I'll kind of corral them first, because I mean it's my whole yard. So there's some kind of gopher pellets that they don't like, and they said you know, start in one spot and kind of shoo them the other way, and that way, you know, they won't just kind of go crazy trying to escape. Because I'm kind of I'm almost thinking they might be under the house too, because I think our house is there's no foundation, it's just sitting on the dirt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, circle 1953 buildings.
I think ours is 1956.
Yeah, this one's a like a custom. They dynamited the flat part and then bulldoze off the rubble off the side. So that's my yard. Yeah, and then it goes down, you know, down the side of the hill for, gosh, 20 feet, 25 feet.
Mhm.
And that's the part I wanted to put the ice cream beans.
Nice.
If I don't fall down the hill.
Oh,
Do you guys have any recommendations for, I have some low light spots where I'm trying to grow some edibles. Any recommendations for places that don't get a lot of sun?
It depends what your regular day is, because like you know, my summer, I have 2 months where it's 110, 115 degrees,
mhm.
and so it bakes all the plants. But I bought a avocado um from Frank actually, and it's been in a pot under shade, and it's still alive. And the other one that I had left out, you know, full sun, um died.
You
Hmm.
know what's an inexpensive plant that I really enjoy that seems to do well when it's shaded, although I'm sure they'll tell you it's full sun, is the strawberry guava.
Ah,
Interesting.
Mine is actually planted underneath some other trees, and it does really, really well. And of course, pawpaws.
yeah.
What
They
about
like
passion fruit?
Passion fruit is a vine.
Yeah,
it. All mine's full sun.
full sun. Yeah, okay.
I heard coffee can do more shade, but I don't know if it's more shade in a canopy, if that's different than in shade in a canyon.
Mhm.
But also coffee can be susceptible to fungus, so you'd have to watch out for that.
Yeah, that's a
Got it.
good point.
You know, I have a couple of odd things that are growing great in shade, which is miracle fruit, and I have what's the other vine called? Guarana. And the guarana is like 3, 4 years old. It still hasn't fruited, but it's growing, it's staying alive, and it's kind of tropical.
Somebody had a question about pawpaws, whether they can survive in 110-degree heat.
Oh, that was me. They died. Sorry. They were doing so well hiding under the loquat tree, but
But how
no.
big were they though?
I got them as plant sitting pot. You know, somebody had them in 1 gallon pots,
Mhm.
and it took a good 6 months before it actually had leaves on it. And
Mhm.
then we went into summer. So I was hiding them under, I have this, okay, I have nothing taller than 6 feet because the top of all the trees kind of burn off. So I was hiding them under a loquat tree that was like 6 feet tall. And um the heat got to them, I guess. So
So
yeah,
that
pretty
could be
bad.
also because they were small.
Could be.
A more established one could be able to survive a longer heat or higher.
Yeah,
heat.
it was next to the asphalt driveway though. So
Well, that helps with heat.
yeah. So it was like, oh gosh, but gosh, those pawpaws were good.
Well,
So
Charlie, he's very familiar with pawpaws because in Missouri, as
yeah, he brings
says,
them back.
yeah,
And
he
I
says
get to eat the
they do
fruit.
really good there. So,
But yeah, my pawpaws never grew. And this was actually somebody down the street. He's also a member, and he brought a bunch of them already, like seedlings.
mhm.
And so I took one. He said, "Oh, you should take two because just in case." And so I took two, and I did really well until that summer. So I
Yeah,
guess,
they're definitely an understory plant.
yeah, that's what I thought. That's why I hid them under the loquat, but it was close to the asphalt driveway, so that's probably what did them in.
I have a few that have been going since 2019 from the Festival of Fruit Seeds,
Uh-huh.
and they're barely a foot high. There
Oh.
were 7 of them. I had them in pots under a shade cloth for the last couple of years, and this past fall, I planted them down into the dirt, and maybe 3 of them are still living.
Oh. So, because I mean, our fractured granite's pretty well draining, so I'm kind of thinking maybe a fertilizer or something, or
Yes. Me one more second to find I had a thing of one of the topics we're going to discuss.
Oh,
That might be. Give me just a second.
has anybody been to a Scion exchange yet?
no.
I went to Inland Empire last weekend.
Oh, okay.
Had it at I guess, a UC Riverside site where they have a CCPP there, the Citrus Clonal Protection Program. And it was nice. It was relatively small, but they did a really good job. And the funny thing is, they've been trying to get new their new board approved. And I guess they tried in December and they didn't have enough of their people there to vote for them. So they couldn't get their new board in. They need, I think, 1/3 of their membership. And I guess they have 30 people because 1/3 is 10. And they pulled 10 of us in at the Scion Exchange and held a board meeting right there, standing up. I thought it was pretty clever. I really do think they did a nice job. So
I'm excited to get my orders into the CCPP, but I looked at the weather and we're just not quite at warm enough weather, I think, or at least where I am.
Yeah, I don't recommend doing it grafting on citrus until March, April direction, because you're putting them on there and before they can grow together, since they're going to be relatively dormant, they're not dormant like some of the dormant trees, but they're not actively growing.
Yeah,
When you do the grafting, it's just going to sitting there until it starts growing, and then you have a chance of rotting, especially
or drying out. Yep.
So that's why we pushed our signwood exchange back a little bit or forward. So it's later compared to in January. Then you're going to have a higher take rate and cuttings won't go to waste as much as if you're doing it a month earlier.
Yeah, that's reasonable. One thing, maybe if other people are more familiar with the CCPP than I am, I've only ordered twice, I think, over the last 2 years, but sometimes they run out and sometimes they don't have a budwood. And I don't know if that's just because, they don't have it for that tree, or that tree's not, strong enough, or is it that people are ordering earlier and they kind of run out? That's my only worry about,
Well,
wait.
well, getting a sign, first off, some of the cyanwood from the CCPP, if it's under patent or other, they have some deal with some nursery, then that might not be available. But then they only have these things coming from little trees that they have growing. So that can be susceptible to what's available. And is the cutting big enough to have buds that are viable? And there's a guy there named Rock who's in charge of it. And I've spoken to about stuff. So he would be your point of contact to ask questions like that.
And just to be clear, his name is Rock.
Yeah.
Cool.
But not the Rock.
Yeah.
Still a cool name.
Inland Empire is putting together an order to CCPP.
But I think it's too
Oh.
early.
Well, you don't know when their order is going to go through. I don't
Yeah,
know.
true.
So
Well, that's sort of an important thing to know, though, when placing an order, because if they order it now,
they have delivery times for each cutting, right? They have their calendar on their website, so they're actually really accurate, at least with the ones that I've ordered. If you order it within a certain window, then sorry, my video is not on. If you order within a certain window, then they will deliver, on the day that they say. So, but maybe the order is not going to go until later. Rootstock?
I've always grafted onto my existing trees. So I've ordered twice from the Citrus Clonal Protection Program too.
I planted 12 pomelo seeds, and 11 of them died, but I've got one that I'm nursing along.
I usually graft it to existing trees, but with the citrus disease, that's harder to get and questionable, because a lot of the nurseries aren't adhering to some of the rules that the CDFA puts in place regarding citrus disease. They're supposed to get the plants and keep them indoors, and if they're not sold in 90 days, they're supposed to be destroyed. But the last time I was at Home Depot near me, which we're in the quarantine zone, had them sitting outside. So you could actually get the disease from the tree, because when they spray the tree, it may kill the insect when it bites at, well, it'll have to be after it bites the tree, because otherwise it wouldn't ingest the poison. That's assuming poison. Then it's still biting the tree and giving a chance for the bacteria to get into the tree. Once even one cell of that bacteria is in, or whatever you call it on a bacteria, is into the tree, then it will start spreading, and the insect could be dead with its teeth in the tree, and it's still spreading. So you don't want to get the citrus disease. It's the citrus psyllid, which carries the disease, but has this life expectancy between 15 days and 45 days. During that time, they can lay like 400 to 600 eggs. Those eggs have a 4% chance of carrying the disease directly with them from the mother insect. So some of those insects will be carrying it, whether or not that baby insect bites a tree that has it or doesn't. And if the insects don't have it and they bite a tree that has it, then they get it. So and the insect is very tiny. It's as small as a whitefly, but it's dark colored. So it's not like as visible. And my issue with the citrus CDFA has been, they're showing pictures of full infestations when people never wanted to get to that point. If it's to that point, you and everybody within a block of your house is going to have it. So it's a bigger issue than what they would let on, and their funding was cut down after COVID because politicians don't like to give out money to their programs. So, yeah.
Well, thanks for answering my questions. Appreciate it.
Yes. But going on the topic of the meeting was growing cuttings. And I have to work with two different computers because I had to put my computer in a weird spot to make sure a cable's running to the laptop. But the issues with planting cuttings is wrong time of year. If you plant cutting when it's super hot outside, the cutting will cook and dry out before it ever takes. If you do it too early, it's dormant and it's just rotting in the ground. So there's a big issue there. Depending on what plant you're looking to cut, to propagate with cuttings, you need to research when's the best timing for that. And it's typically just after it comes out of dormancy would be a good time. And also keep in mind the soil you're using might have insects that are active and chewing up the roots as they're trying to grow out of the cutting. So getting something like maybe one of Gary's mixes, it's more or less prone to having undesirable stuff in it. And it's a relatively stable soil since it's not breaking down and disappearing like most potting mixes you get at Home Depot. It's just uncomposted material, usually with Miracle-Gro or something added. So it's going to do something now, and they're hoping that it'll start breaking down, and then that's what's feeding the plant. But the whole time, the soil's really disappearing because it's not really, or it's just organic matter. It's not minerals or sand or anything like that. So your soil is actually shifting. And it's also more prone to having more moisture, which also promotes rot, which can affect the roots as well when they're trying to develop. And also don't move the plant because roots off new cuttings are very susceptible to movement. And people want to pick up the plant, look at it. Oh, I just picked it up and looked at it. No, you touched it, you breathed on it, and you just moved it. And some of the micro roots just snapped off and then it started dying. And just have to watch, it's either too much water or too little water. And like if you get where it's going that brown going up the stem or from the top, that could be like a fungus going on from too much water. And you could be, especially if it's in a small container, if you don't water it one day, you've just underwatered it. And then you water it 2 days in a row, you've overwatered it. And you don't want to get funguses to get there. And that also comes back to the cutting. When you cut the cutting from whatever, make sure your plant is where you're cutting is clean, because sometimes you could have a fungus on the outside of a plant and you go to cut it with a pair of sharp tools, but you've still got some of that fungus on the cutting. And you don't want to have that. It's not good to have fungus on stuff. So I want to see more success in propagation and understand what happened more than just throw the stick in the ground. It didn't do good. I have no idea. The genie that makes it work was busy that day, and I want it to succeed. And also, I had a list, so I have to look at that, but setting the correct propagation mix for that plant. What goes good with that plant for growth in soil? That's very important. There's a pH that every plant is the happiest with, even though most of the time they don't get it. But if you can get something close to that, just as a starter, once it starts, it's good to go. And don't use those little, have you seen those seed thingies that you put that's a little disc and you soak it in water and then it expands around the seed? That has a plastic mesh around it. Well, that doesn't do good for root growth. So if you do anything like that, it would work good temporarily because those discs actually would be good for propagation since they're peat moss. But as soon as the roots start growing, they can't get through the plastic mesh. And then if you try to tear the plastic mesh off, you're ripping the roots that are sticking through it. And the other thing has to do with rooting hormones. You have to pick the right rooting hormone for what you're dealing with, because each rooting hormone, root tone, dip and grow, whatever flavors it was, Clonex, each one has its own little different rooting hormone, and one works better than another on a cutting. So if you pick one, try a different one and see if that works better. And don't over apply rooting hormones because you can get too much in the hormones on the plant and actually have a detrimental effect. And in nature, they don't have much rooting hormones applied to their stems. So just be careful on that, you know. I've always been amazed with dip and grow because you don't control the concentration. You just stick a whole bunch on it and see what sticks. Any questions about that stuff? And we're going to be compiling a list over time through the website of stuff that works. So if people give input, we can update it and say this works, this doesn't. Because I don't want people to have to relearn the wheel every year. We're going to save the information and make it available. And not too many chapters have that information accumulated. And I want to talk about seeds. Oh, on the root, also I forgot to mention on the cuttings, some plants do better from cuttings. It could be hardwood that they do better with to root with, or softwood, or even the tips. So that's another thing. You might be planting the wrong part of the plant or the wrong stage of the plant and hoping it to root, but it doesn't. Blueberries usually are people find difficult to root, and we found some of them to be pretty easy to root. And even if you're nervous about cutting it and not having catching in the soil before it goes bad, then take some of the soil and put it around one of the branches and do like a mini air layering, and that could work on those. Usually I take, since the blueberries are relatively close to the ground, I'll stick like a cup there and put a hole in it and let it see what it does from there. You know, and you want to do it just before the dormant season, when it starts growing after that. That makes sense? Okay. So on seed propagation, a lot of people say the seed they planted failed. Who had the pawpaws and 9 seeds, or the plant that had like many seeds and only one took?
That was me. I was planting pomelos. Actually, all 12 worked just fine until I had to go out of town for business and it got really hot and I didn't water them. And so all but one died. But at pulling them out, the roots were great.
Okay. But on some plants, they need, for seed treatment methods they use to simulate whatever conditions in their nature environment was. An animal went, ate it, pooped it out, and then their seed became viable, or the seed had to sit in the sun for 2 years and then do this, or the wind from the northeast has to blow across it for 5 minutes, whatever. Some of the seed treatment methods used has been hot water, soaking in the seed for hot water for a certain amount of time. You have to watch how hot it is depending on the seed. Some things are sulfuric acid treatment to decrease the outer layer of it, to make it easier for the tree to seed to become active. Hydrogen peroxide, sodium calcium hypochlorite, also known as bleach, using that, alcohol and similar stuff. Gibberellin is similar to it's gibberellic acid, which is a plant hormone. I want to get more familiar with it because what I've read about it is you can have really good results on young plants. As the plant gets older, it becomes less effective. But they had a walnut tree that was, the control was 1 foot, with it was like 8 feet in the same year of growth. So I don't know.
Are you saying that's a fertilizer, or I'm sorry?
Plant hormone.
Okay.
Gibberellic acid.
Okay, not a rooting hormone, but just a plant hormone that stimulates growth.
Yeah. And I wanted to see what that would do in regards to if you're grafting and you were to apply that to the plant, it might stimulate growth at the point where you want it to be growing as much as possible and have a higher take rate. But I haven't got a hold of gibberellic acid to try that. And CRFG used to promote it a lot, but then the people who promoted a lot ended up retiring from CRFG. And so then it became less visible, and Home Depot doesn't promote anything other than Miracle Grow. So the options are this, and also gibberellic acid used to be very expensive, but now they've got it better at producing it, so it's cheaper. But there's another hormone, which I don't even know how to say the word, cytokinin. Do you know what that is? How do you say that? Can we guess?
Cytokinin.
Question. Cytokinins?
Yeah, cytokinins.
Okay. That's another plant hormone that they used to do this. Ethylene. That's similar to ethylene, I guess, when you want to have bananas go ripe. Potassium nitrate. And thiourea. How would you say that?
I think it's thiourea.
Thiourea?
Yeah.
And that's used to stimulate germination of dormant seeds. Of course, we don't have that available yet, but we will. Working on that. B1 vitamins, willow tea, which enhances the actions of plant hormones and it appears to stimulate germination. Of course, who has willow tea? We need to find someone who has a big yard with a willow tree and then make it produce tea.
Hey, Frank, what about the honeysuckle? That's from the willow family.
That I don't know. I'm just looking at the list this actually was a list that was compiled from 1981 at CRFG and in one of the Fruit Gardener magazines. And somehow I managed to get a hold of it in document form, and we're going to be adding that to the website soon. It was one that I missed in the new website. So it'll probably generate a lot of hits on it because it's many pages long and goes into talking about different things, including a chart of fruit propagation from seed and how many germination days and what is the dormancy breaker. I'm going to redo this table so it's clear, because unless I read part of the article that tells me what SC and CW means, I think that's probably scratching it or something. And it tells the hardiness of the temperatures as well. Yeah, low it can go in degrees. If you look on this side, let's see I look side here. Okay. That's how cold it can, I think the seed can handle, since this is functions of seed. -40 for plants from whatever that botanical name is. And I'm going to see about adding in what is the regular name instead of the botanical name, because honestly, I don't think most people know what the botanical name is for whatever they're growing. I guess there's I'm guessing this is cherimoya right here. Even though it says cherimola, but it says it goes down to 26 degrees. So this could be really useful for people figuring out how to get those seeds growing, what to expect. And this one column is germination days. How many days it takes to germinate? So if I have it planted, maybe I want to know that it takes 14 to 21 days to germinate on some of these things. Seems like most of them on this page. No, some say 30 and some say 7 to 21. And this page is only the A's. So we have a lot of information there to go with. And it can help save a lot of time when you plant something and having a better success rate. Just knowing that, maybe I have to scratch the surface of the seed. Because that was another propagation method. It's called scarification. So if you're looking for, here's a tip on finding this information online. First, you need to know what you're looking for, like scarification, and then you do your plant seed. So let's say scarification, cherimoya seed. See if anything comes up. If it doesn't, then search cherimoya seed, germination tips. If it doesn't, then I would go through some of the other stuff and throw in hydrogen peroxide, whatever you can have available. Maybe it'll help with germination. Because I don't like it when I plant 20 seeds and only one takes something or even germinates. I feel like I did something wrong, which is what I did, because obviously I'm not meeting one of the conditions for proper germination. And one other thing I wanted to mention about germination, we found out when we were growing the plants from seed, the plant did not seem to be growing, but what was happening at night is when it was growing, insects would come in and chew up the plant. And the next day we wouldn't see any growth because it was chewed up. So we put them on racks. We just got some metal racks that the grocery stores were throwing out so we can tear them up. And when we water them, they also drop down in water beneath it. But we're finding them growing because they're not getting chewed up by little rats or insects that are sitting on the ground, climbing up the pot and going away. So that helped the success rate. Anybody else have any tips?
Frank, I get really good success rate with the seeds. Like for instance, the citrus, there's a hard shell, and then I stick it in either paper towels or in a baggie, a damp paper towel in a baggie. And then when there's a little bit of puffiness, I take off the hard shell, and then you got little seedlings growing. But the problem is that your paper towel gets caught in the little roots. So I'm kind of thinking maybe next time this next batch for this season, I'm going to use like a petri dish, and I'm going to put clean toilet paper, and shred it up. And then they said put it on someplace warm, but like on top of the refrigerator or something is what I saw. But I have some plants under lights, so I also have a what Kathy was talking about, the seedling mat. So I'm going to put them on that this time and
Well,
see if it makes a difference.
also my concern on it is the fact that you're using it in as tissue paper as a medium just to keep it wet, when you should actually just have it in. To me, it should be in soil already then,
I
because they have those miniature soil things.
well,
little,
yeah, but it takes too much space, because my success rate has not been very good. But suddenly, ta-da, all the seeds would start germinating, and then I have too many seeds. And so like, that paper towel in a baggie with a little bit of air, so it's poofy in the warmth. But I mean, we're talking fresh seeds. Like I just ate that orange, or I just squeezed that lemon, and then I washed off the outside, and I put it in the baggie.
Well, not as many seeds are active immediately after you have them available, but on those that apparently is. But one thing you might try is, have you ever considered using an old ice tray?
Oh, we have an ice maker.
Well, if you go to a garage sale, typically most garage sales somebody has ice trays, or you get them for $1 or $2, or usually $1. And if you just drilled a small hole in them so water would go out, then you could put your soil and your seeds, and also through the hole, you could, if you wanted to get the seed out and let's say it's germinating, you could push a nail through it and use it to help push up the soil to get the seedling out of the tray. And the trays are small enough so they can go most places, and they're easy enough to tip sideways to help you get the little seedling out. And versus those ones they have that are long, about this tall, usually they're difficult to get seedlings out once they get going.
Yeah, I'm also saving those plastic egg cartons. So I'm gonna try those this time.
Yeah, that's a good one too. The clear one or the
The clear one.
yeah, because those are pretty cool because it can be double layered as well. So they could almost be the little mini greenhouse.
Exactly. Of course, now they're like $8 for the 18 hole. So it's like, well, it's a good thing I started saving early because I'm not gonna buy them for $8.
Well, I'll start getting more of those since I volunteer at food distribution stuff. We always have extras of those things, so I can see about getting some more of those for people to use. Because that's a good option for those. Same thing with, you can't get a hold of that. There's also cupcake containers, those ones usually cupcakes come in. They're relatively small.
Yeah, yeah. And I have been, using as my little incubating seed containers, the vegetable containers, but well, I got too busy at work. So it's like this time for sure,
Well,
I will start doing it again.
there's so many little things you can use that are around the house, even, yogurt cups. That's like a miniature pot. You just put some holes in the bottom of it and you have a small nursery pot. And if you're growing inside of a house, not in addition to the light, you need to make sure it's a seed heater underneath it. So it helps keep it warm and usually keeps growth going. Just remember, they need to be moist, not dry, and not wet. It's sometimes hard to keep that balance when your seeds or your pot has so small a size and it's actually being heated, and your house may have your air conditioning or heater going on, which is drying out the air.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, I remember when I used to have fish at home, in fish tanks and stuff. And what did they say? The secret to, or the solution to pollution is dilution, right? You just keep changing bits of it, but that's really hard to do in a small tank to keep the environment just right. But if you have a massive tank, it's actually much easier. And that's what I've also found with these seedlings. It's hard to get the right sort of moistness level of the soil when they're in tiny little, containers, because it either just evaporates very quickly or it's oversaturated. It's sort of difficult and takes a lot of maintenance. Whereas if you have a larger container, and I used I don't know, about yay big containers for my seeds, and it would seem to be easier to just sort of keep the moisture level right there without having to like constantly be checking it and looking at it. That's a little tip that I found to be useful.
Yeah, that's when we were dealing with the plants for the green scene or the plant sale. The smaller pots have more difficulty than the bigger pots because they can dry out so fast. And then it's hard to get some of them to get saturated again. It may take, if they dry out, it takes a half an hour to get peat, especially peat moss. When peat moss dries out, it's really, I think the word is hydrophobic, where it doesn't want to absorb water. So you could sit it in a bucket of water, it's submerged for an hour, and you go, okay, it's got to be wet. And then it turns out if you were to pull it out, it's only a quarter wet. So you have to watch out for that.
Yeah.
The other thing is when you plant in the soil, if you plant in clay soil and you put it in there, it's actually going to be more wet because you have a bucket it's sitting in, because the clay doesn't allow the water to dissipate into the soil very quickly. But the surface 1 inch can dry out, and you look at it and you go, oh, it's dry. But if you were to take it out of the soil, you'd find water is just sitting there and the roots are drowning. And it's hard to imagine that on a hot day, your plant died not because of the heat, but because it was sitting in water underneath the soil, because the clay soil was, encapsulating it around there. And if you dug a bigger hole, you just have more water to dissipate. So the current rule is not to make a big hole, make a same or a little bit bigger than the pot, so you can get the plant into the soil. And then after it grows and starts getting stabilized, that small area of clay bucket water will be less of an issue as it gets bigger, because its roots are going to expand around that as well.
Hey, getting back to the timing of cuttings and so forth, given that the Scion exchange, I think is going to be on the 11th, February 11th, I think,
Mhm.
if I'm correct. What do you recommend in terms of, I mean, I've already started doing some pruning. Is that a concern, or should we try and wait?
If you can wait, because it's always better closer to the date that people are going to start using it, because otherwise you got to try to keep it in a refrigerator. And when anything's in a refrigerator, you can have a chance of mold, fungus, and everybody's refrigerator can have that unless you just bought the refrigerator and that's all you're using it for. It'll have less of an issue. But if you have strawberries in it, strawberries going to have a little bit of mold, fungus, whatever it is.
You guys don't have a dedicated Scion refrigerator?
No.
Surprised.
And somebody messaged about the location of it. Our Scionwood exchange is going to be, first off, remember there's 2 different Orange County chapters now. The Orange County chapter, that's their name, is different than the South Orange County chapter. Their Scionwood exchange is at the Orange County Fairgrounds, at the barn. What is it? The silo building? Or no, not the silo building. That's the Millennium Barn. There's going to be there. Ours is going to be at the Irvine Great Park Farm and Food Lab, which is near that balloon, if you haven't been there. And we've already taken videos. I just haven't had a chance to put them up on the website because I've been busy with that HLB thing and making the website link stable for the CDFA. So it's not going to change once they got their link up, which will help our search engine ranking like through the roof. So, but it's going to be there. We've already reserved the space. It's going to be a couple, like 3 to 4 yards of potting mix that's composed of
Hummus?
pumice, peat moss, sandy loam soil, and some other little stuff. And so it's a pretty good mixture, and it's from Aguanagua, and it sells, including tax, about $95 a yard. So but they only sell it by the pickup truck. So if you drive in, you have a pickup truck, okay, here's my money, give me a yard of it. And then they dump it into the truck. And then you got it for, instead of paying by the bag, which is more expensive. And keep in mind, any soil you're going to buy that they're doing amendments to, like whatever they've added in there, some partially composted stuff, it'll take a little bit of time for it to be more active where you want your plants to be, because they've gotten it. Their goal is to move it as fast as possible. And the difference between this one and, let's say, Home Depot's is Home Depot added Miracle Grow or some other chemical to temporarily make it more growth active from that, and then hoping that it catches on before the stuff starts breaking down. And I just want to make sure people have the correct expectations when they're working with the soil mixes, because none of the soil mixes are natural when you're buying it, because it's not in the ground already. But it's the best thing we can do. You could fight getting the perfect soil mix and spend, the next century, but I don't have that time. So I call it, my term is cook. The soil hasn't been cooked yet. So I work around that.
Is there anything else that we should do to prepare for the Scion exchange?
Actually, just because this Scionwood exchange is different than the other Scion exchange that we're doing. We're doing it where it's pretty much anything garden related, as in addition to the cuttings. So we're pulling in from other people who are not even part of CRFG to attend. We already have enough seed packets that filled up the bed of my truck. Some of the other chapter board members commented about it because they didn't believe it when I said it, but then when they saw the picture, they're like, where did you get that many seed packets? Well, for the last year, we've been working out contacts with entities that are higher level, and it's starting to come produce results. You know, we have contact with the heads of the CDFA citrus division and some of the insect divisions. The UCR system has been notified of our existence by the heads of some other departments. So we're expecting good things to come about it. We actually, in this HLB article, requested that the citrus clonal protection program decrease their prices because it's beneficial to the quarantine and stuff, because it incentivizes, the higher the price, that incentivizes people to not do it properly. So because of this, they're actually discussing it now. And we'll see what effect that has. Maybe they'll have a different price for home people versus businesses, because the commercial growers, when they get the cuttings from the citrus clonal protection program, they get a couple cuttings and then they get, I forget what the term they call a tree, let's say mother tree, and it has to be kept within a building with dual layer. You have to go through a fan room or something, and whatever the conditions there. I've been told them, but didn't care because I don't have that ability and not going to do it. But they grow this mother tree, and then they'll take their cuttings from then on from that tree as they're growing new plants. And so that's why they don't know multiple times. A homeowner, he'll have to buy it 3 times because he screwed up, because he did it too early in the season, too late in the season. He did it when 2 days before the heat wave hit or something. Plus, we're not very good at it, which is, I want to address that in the future and have people have a 75 success rate of grafting. That's our goal. And if you understand the basics of it, and it's not magic, it's just matching a couple layers and the cutting and the plant and choosing the right time to do it. And also making sure the conditions that it's under are satisfactory to the plant. You know, don't wrap it too many times with parafilm or buddy tape, because you're just keeping the moisture out. You're not cutting, you're not trying to do a tourniquet to the plant, and you're not trying to have it give a protective barrier from a meteorite. You just want a thin enough layer to protect it from drying out before the cutting takes. As soon as it takes, ideally, I want that wax tape to come off, because the bark of the tree is also evaporation point, and more moisture is flowing, more active your growth would be, assuming it doesn't dry out.
Wait, can you explain that a little bit more? Because actually I've experimented with taking the rubber band off at different points in time, and also even trying to peel the buddy tape off at various points of time. And I was thinking that actually maybe just good to leave the buddy tape on as a barrier to, well, maybe to things getting in, but also for evaporation. I figured the less evaporation out.
Well, initially you don't want the evaporation, because you just have a cutting and they're touching and they haven't fused together. As they start fusing together, it's the area is only, the layer of plant material that's active for the grafting is only 6 cells thick. So you're going to have, let's say you had 4 points of contact there where the 6 cells were matching. And as they start matching and fusing together, that it's going to increase as it takes the space. Instead of 4 points, it's more 4 dashes and lines and so forth. So as that progresses, you're going to start having leaves grow out. And as those leaves grow out, they want to grow through the parafilm or buddy tape. So then now they're underneath it. And then as that grows, it's going to have less need for retaining moisture and having a layer on it. You know, if you put a Band-Aid on your skin, it's fine to a certain point. If you leave it on, it's not going to be doing well. And you're going to have moisture sitting underneath it too long and not growing. And prime example was figs. When we were dealing with the figs, when you had it wrapped in parafilm and you let the fig grow, okay, you get this plant and you had the parafilm on it. And okay, here's all this thing, parafilm. You'd remove the parafilm, it would turn white for about a week or two because of the shock, because it's the blocking of moisture that should have been evaporated there. Then it started stabilizing, and I read about that, and that was fairly common if you have the wax or parafilm on it for a long time.
And I'm talking about even just where the graft itself is, right? Like I'm typically doing a cleft graft. So you have something like this, and I'm just concerned about these parts here, which even when it's producing and everything looks good there, it's still like sticking out. And so I was thinking maybe keep the buddy tape around just that part, but maybe not. Like if you see new leaf growth coming out of the buds, is that a good time to sort of remove the?
Well, I judge it based upon, when I look at it, how the union point can be unstable. So you have to always, well, everything differs. Each plant, the same plant on a different branch could differ. You have to just look at it and judge, does this look strong enough? You know, is it growing up enough? You know, if there's 5 inches of a new branch coming off the cyanwood, then you might want to consider that. And what I would do is, because you don't want to pull it, I would take like a X-Acto knife and lightly score, very lightly, because you're just cutting the wax tape. And on the union point, that's different than the parafilm part on the branch, because the union point is, it can be weak, even if it's growing. Okay, so you want to make sure that's stable. You're using a rubber band for that. Make sure you remove that later. I had one of the members tell me, oh no, I don't have any problem with rubber bands because they break down over time. And I showed him on his own plants that they were girdling it, and he was surprised about that. Because remember, for one thing, rubber bands vary depending on which rubber band you're using. And in the sun, not in the sun, you know, if it's in the sun, does it become hard and stiff or brittle? I don't know, but I try to get it off sooner than that. And on back to the union, one thing about the union, depending on how you're cutting it, how the cut is, how perfect it is, there could be air pockets. And those air pockets could have moisture sitting in there. And how long is that moisture going to sit there before it causing it rot? So you have to take that stuff into account and watch out for it. When I was doing some of the, because we have 50 varieties of citrus grafted under our citrus trees. And when we were doing it, our first ones were failing a lot. So what we did is we went through and started, I would take a tuna can and I would heat up candle wax in it. So it'd be liquidy. My wife would do the grafting, wrap the parafilm, and then I'd come along and dip my finger in the wax that's liquid. And it was, as it gets on my finger, it's starting to cool down. And then I would dab it where the union point is, because there typically was an air pocket, or not an air pocket, where it wasn't fully sealed.
An air gap.
Air gap, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. An air gap. So when I was doing this, it would seal it. And we had a higher take rate. And on the flip side, when you're using parafilm, if it gets too hot, parafilm becomes sticky at 122 degrees. So at 122 degrees, it can start sticking to the bark and interfering with it. And we have a number of plants where you could see that happen. And when I was trying to get the parafilm off, I was trying to scrape it off. It wasn't just falling off. And 122 degrees may not seem like a attainable number if our day is only 100 or 110, but you could have reflective heat for a short time, hitting it or whatever conditions, it got warmer to that parafilm.
Is that the same issue with buddy tape? I found buddy tape to be just absolutely amazing.
I don't know, because I don't know how much wax is in buddy tape or what it's made of. It's just on the parafilm. I like the parafilm just because it's more wax and more natural, and it's really cheap.
Buddy tape is more expensive and hard to get a hold of, but it does last a long time.
Yeah, so that's my thing on it. And then so I would be removing the wax later. And also different plants have different success rates, probably for different people, depending on how they're doing it and their conditions. my wife can graft choromoya in 9 out of 10 take. Citrus, you know, until we made that modification, we had almost no taking. And the one other thing regarding grafting is I was curious about grow lights on grafting. Because once it starts taking, what would happen if you added a grow light to it? Would that accelerate it, which would be good temporarily? You know, because the hardest problem is once you get past this bump of it catching and succeeding. And because until it does that, any variable could take it out. Oh, we had a hot day. Oh, it fried because it didn't, you know, couldn't get enough moisture going through it. You know, it was too wet. So if you can deal with that small growth spurt needed section. And what brought this to my attention was our street light was replaced with a prototype from Edison. This has a 5,000K light, even though it's fairly far away, you know, street light height. My plant is beneath it. And that plant had a cutting when we grafted the cyanwood. It was a cyanwood this big, and in 1 year, it was 5 feet long. And the one next to it, which was a kumquat, that was a cutting we got from the CCP thing, actually has been producing fruit the first year because it got big enough. So one advantage in that corner of the yard, it's got, I call it closer to 24-hour light, because during the daytime and then at night. So what if you extended that to using, you know, 5,000K light, and you can get, Sam's Club is selling a 5,000K LED light that's about, is it 12 inches by about 5 or 7 inches in size. And it produces 5,000K of color temperature and 5,000K of brightness. So, and since it's LED, relatively cheap to deal with. And keep in mind, don't look at LED lights with your eyes. They're not good for it. One reason for that is because how they determine brightness is dimmer LED is actually blinking very fast. And they adjust the speed of that blinking to adjust the brightness. So it's how your eye takes it. But if you're looking at the light directly, you could actually for a few seconds get those brightness hitting your retina and not even know it. That's just, you know, like welding, you don't look at the arc. So, I'm seeing if anybody had any questions out of there. Anybody have any questions?
This was super helpful for me. Unfortunately, I have to drop. My dinner is waiting. It's
Okay.
getting cold, but this is fantastic, and I'm looking forward to the Scion Exchange.
Well, the Scion Exchange, Costco is going to be there as a there's going to be some representatives from Costco there. There's going to be the CDFA is going to have some of their scientists there. This is and then Aguanaga may have somebody there or not. We're not sure because staffing issues, and we're working on some other entities to be there as well. So it's going to be it's almost like a mini festival of fruit, because we're trying to get a lot of entities working together, which further supports our goals too. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, I've got to run. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Did anybody have any questions on what we talked about? And on our website, there's actually some tools we have that we had added, and they're tables. And Kathy had a table where she compiled the information on various methods of propagating, from cuttings, seeds, or whatever. How much are each piece of Scion? Are you referring to the Citrus Clonal Protection Program sells Scions? The California fruit growers, when we have our Scionwood exchanges, there is no cost as people bring in stuff from their plants and then other people can get it. Typically, as people have more plants over time, they have more stuff available that they're not using, you know, because they're just pruning their trees. Whereas new people don't have much stuff. So it's a good opportunity to get cuttings of stuff you haven't got yet and share if you have a lot of stuff. And let's see. And oh, also, if for our sign exchange, if people bring books or anything, like if you have some old Western garden book that you've got newer versions and you haven't been wanting to throw out the old one, but you want somebody to get used for it, good place to give it is bring it to that. Pots, PVC pipes, if you're not using them anymore. So people switch to a different propagation method. They may go into hydroponics. So a lot of other stuff they're not using, you know, it's a good chance to give it away. So, okay, yeah, so there's no cost to that. Okay. Okay, but back on that table, she has it listed out what type of propagation method works for different type of plant. So it'll be like this plant can propagate from seeds, cuttings, air layering. Oh, or this plant only propagates from air layering. And this one does from cuttings, you know, just it's very useful so you don't waste your time on stuff. Keep in mind, sometimes some information can be off because someone tried it and it failed and they just wrote, I tried it once and it failed. But other people said, oh, it works for me every time. Somebody said white mulberry, you couldn't grow from cuttings. Well, we have a bunch out front right now, so apparently that didn't match for that. Apricot seeds. Anybody growing apricot seeds? Or haven't grown them? You can go to the chat and mention it. See, I haven't grown apricot seeds myself. I did have plum and plum seeds that had no problem taking because I kept having to dig them out of the yard. So let's see. Okay, so Meg said she's got one from seed. Meg, do you want to discuss how you propagate it or grew the seed? Do you just put it in soil?
There we go. Yeah, that one was stick it in the dirt and see what happens. And I didn't do anything fancy. You know,
How old was the seed?
the seed was fresh and the tree is probably about 5 years old right now.
Did you break it out of the outer shell first, Meg?
No, I was lazy and just stuck it in the dirt.
Okay.
I would look up about the apricot and see if there's a difference in putting it. Is there any orientation like avocado seeds have? Because that may make a difference. Oh, and one thing about planting, you know how avocado seeds, you put them in water and you let it sit for a while and then you hope the root comes out, and if it does, stick it in some soil. Always watch out that there's no insects in the water, because you can actually have water having insects that are chewing up the roots as it's trying to grow and basically killing it. Yeah, we've seen that with those little mosquitoes that are a nightmare. They go in any water and start propagating. So we end up putting a bucket within a nursery pot within a nursery pot. So we get those black nursery pots we have that don't have holes in it, and we put one with holes in it on top of it, and we can pull it up and put it in another one and change out the water real quick. So let me see here. Let me do something here. Has everybody looked at the new website? All right, give me a second. Yeesh. Just a second. Trying to make it activate my screen. Oh, there. Okay, you should be able to see the screen now. We haven't added many pictures to the website yet. This is the front page. The new website is more interactive depending on how you're on a cell phone, tablet, or computer. It's adjusting for each one. So if you look at with one versus the other, it'll differ. Right now, we've added a lot of stuff to the information category. Here's the citrus disease article. And this is a penny. And this is the size of the insect in relation to a penny. And there's it on a citrus, and there's it on a plant. You would never, in my opinion, be able to see that and notice it. Maybe on the citrus, but you know, okay, but we're going to be adding various pictures and stuff as we go through. On here, let me show you the tables for propagation. Oops. I'm on a laptop, so it's hard for me to use the touchpad and move around. Okay, so here's, let's say, propagation. See if I added the links yet. Okay, so here's her propagation information. Okay, so if you look here, whatever these are. Okay, let's say Barbados cherry. Hardwood, yes. Semi-hard 4, whatever. Scroll down to the bottom, it's gonna have the table that breaks out that. Softwood, grafting, yes, that works for it. And then tolerance, it's temperature, how low can it go and still survive. Some of the stuff she hasn't added. Guava apple, or apple guava right here. No, I'm gonna fix that table since it should have had that list frozen. No, okay, no, since I'm within here, I'll have to figure out a way to work with that so the column is frozen. So let's see, what was that? Apple guava. Okay, that is no, grafting is the only known method that works consistently. And the reason I say consistently is because some people can actually take like a cutting of a leaf or something and grow it in a petri dish. So under the tough to do conditions, many things can happen, but in general, no. Okay, so let's say banana. Banana doesn't do it from grafting, it just does it from the thing that grows out of the ground that's next to it. So there's a ton of information in here. It says, okay, let me get back to I was looking at blueberry. And is from softwood. So, oh, blue. I see, so blueberries are more from softwood. From that, and then blackberries are from pretty much hardwood, softwood, and what was that? This one here. Semi-hard and softwood. So what I think I'll do with this is I'll add this row at various places throughout the table to make it easier to look at. Because scrolling up and down on the computer, it's harder to see because I have no idea what those columns were when I'm just looking at it. But this is a really good source for stuff. Let me show you, go back to the other one. And there's a plant companion list. This is what plants can be planted next to each other. So if you look at, typically there's vegetables, but cucumbers can be planted next to beans, celery, corn, lettuce, peas, radish, dill. They shouldn't be planted next to the ones that are antagonist. Potato, tomato, sage, and strong aromatic herbs. I'm not sure how that affects it, but apparently it does. So if you use this, you can plant stuff near each other and save space in the garden. And also not plant something near somebody that's going to slow the growth or stop it. So that's a tool you can use how you want. Okay, this quad suite propagation table is a shorter version of Kathy's table with less information. See that? So if you look at 1 to 5, it tells you what it means: difficult, common, whatever. So seed is 1, used in plant breeding programs. Hardwood cuttings, yes. Okay, semi-wood cuttings, it's a common method of propagating it. Softwood cuttings, difficult, it works, but you probably have to jump through hoops. Grafting, yes. Air layering, yes. Root cuttings, no. Okay, yeah, it's so important to know when I'm propagating. See, so I guess, oh, that's a cross. Mango. I mean, mango. Yeah, it's 2. Let's see what 2 means in that column for root cutting. So apparently, nursery stock rootstock production is from cuttings, according to him, on mangoes. It's probably in very specific conditions, so people don't do it. Okay. This just has to do with the citrus budwood. The patented varieties list is what's patented that we've been able to accumulate a list of. So you can know what stuff you're not supposed to be propagating and consider legal. If you search for something, let's say I'm looking for golden something. Control F does this on most web browsers. Okay, so golden apple. Kiwi, let's see. I'm trying to figure which, because 60s, let's just go find something. And we go shift it over because I searched. Well, let's go. Here's Pixie Crunch. It expired on 12/21/21. So since it's expired, it's fair game to propagate without being illegal. When they file for a patent application for plants, it lasts for 20 years from the date it was applied, or close to that. And that's why if you see in the column, this column here where the cursor's at, should be the column where it was applied, and this might have been when it's granted or something. Let me pull up. filed and issued. So you can see that it was issued a year later, a little bit more than a year on this one. Then it was granted, but it's based upon the date it was done. You know, you'd think I'd remember the column since I made this table. So, you know, some stuff here, let's say almond tree named Matin, whatever, Matan. Not that I want to grow an almond tree because they're big and take a lot of water. But that expires in 29, so you wouldn't want to copy that and promote that. Some stuff is about to expire in a year. Again, I don't care about the almond trees, so we scroll down to apples. And I think there's some stuff that just came available. Here's one here. I do not know how to say that name. Birchinal. Okay, Birchinal. You know, some plants, if the patent expired, you're not supposed to propagate it, or you can propagate it, but you cannot call it by that name. So let's say somebody got a trademark on the name, let's say Chinhook for one. This plant here, which the patent expired in 2017. But if they had a patent on or a trademark on the name, you cannot call it a Chinhook. So if for the 20 years of it being patented, they were marketing it as a Chinhook and it became successful in Chinhook name, you can't say, I have a Chinhook apple and I'm giving away the cuttings or selling them or whatever, because they own the rights to that name and you can't use the name without their permission. You can call it everything else you want, but you're not supposed to use that name if it's trademarked. We're working on adding that to this list as well. Some couple items I'd add it to, but it's more difficult to look up trademark information than it is the patent stuff, since the patent standard, and it's easy to link to the website. And also every one of these to this side is a link to the actual patent application. So if you click on it, it brings up a web page and it gives more detail on the thing, which is actually a good reference for information on a specific variety. It tells you about it, what was supposed to be unique, whatever, and by the entities who filed the patent, who did the research on it. So, and this, they'll typically say what the difference is between this and a normal tree. Like this one saying difference between a normal gala, Sivany is thicker, more elastic leaves to fold, blah, blah, blah. So if you suspect you have a variety, that might help looking it up and comparing it. And oops, let me go back here. Oh, and we added some links to different sites where they did an article on grafting. And keep in mind, conditions vary. So where they're at is, this one's from North Carolina. I think it was it? Pretty sure NC is North Carolina, but their conditions and humidity differ from ours. So we typically have drier than most places, except for Arizona, and have to worry about plants drying out, except for when you're near the coast, then you have less moisture issues. So this breaks down stuff. And we're still adding stuff to it. Oh, and some people have said they like using for a grafting knife, an X-Acto knife, because it's cheaper on the blades, it's readily available. You just and they feel they have a little bit more control because it's in a pencil format. Just don't cut your hand or someone else's hand if they're holding something. Okay. Oh, and I haven't added the Tom de Haut Aileron links yet. Let's see.
Hey, Frank?
Yeah.
One advantage of a real grafting knife is that it's beveled only on one side, so you get a nice straight cut.
Yeah. So, here's some more descriptions of grafting videos here. And I think, is that the guy from, who sells that, Ivy Organics, who sells that expensive, mine went blank on it. Charlie, what's that one thing? When you're whitewashing, yeah. He sells that expensive whitewashing thing that's 4 ounces for $40. So he's acting, you know, this will cure everything. Only problem is that stuff, for one, goes bad in about a week after you use it, because you have to, it's in a powder and an oil, and you mix it together and you add water, and you need to use it then or within 7 days, otherwise it goes bad. And I just use the interior latex paint, light color, and I find it at the hazardous waste place for free because people get rid of it a lot, because I don't care about the shade. I just care about that it's interior, so it tends to break down usually over time in the sun, versus exterior, which is supposed to be pretty durable within the sun and out environment. All I do is want it to shade the bark until the plant gets a canopy on it. You don't need to keep it forever. And Raymond messaged Charles Malalchi. Who's that?
Is that the name of the person you're thinking of that sells the expensive whitewash?
No, is that his name?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's his name.
Okay.
Also on the whitewash, I found an old recipe of hydrated lime mixed with linseed oil. And I tried it. It sort of works.
Well, I'd be concerned about the linseed oil soaking into the bark and causing an adverse reaction to some plants.
I'd be concerned about the lime being basic.
I tried it and it worked on a
Okay.
citrus tree.
Okay.
It flakes off fairly easy. I guess you have to get the measurements correct to have it work properly.
Okay. Yeah, I just take half latex paint, half water, mix it together, and then I typically use I like to use a sponge because I can dab it on. I didn't never bothered with trying a spray bottle, because heck, I have enough problem with water and spray bottles and them breaking. So, oh, and finger lime, yeah, finger lime is really slow to grow. But when we put it near the street light, we had a Australian finger lime that was almost the same size that from when I planted it 15 years ago. We dug it up, put it in a 15-gallon pot, and it didn't do anything. So we go, let's put it near the magic light, the street light that's bright. And it actually seemed to be growing now. So we'll find out in about a year how much of a difference it's making. If it does, then I'm gonna have to put a grow light above it outside. And let me see.
Hey, this is Cameron.
Okay, let me see here. I'm strolling through the comments.
Well, Jesse's question about drought tolerant, hardy, vigorous, loquat might fit that criteria.
Another one is to consider is moringa. Am I saying that right? Moringa? The plant that you can eat the leaves and the seeds.
That's how I've heard it pronounced, but I'm not familiar with using it.
Yeah, we're also going to have some seeds of that for the Cinewood exchange, because members have been asking about that in the past. And that plant grows pretty well. The one thing on that type of plant is you want to keep it prune low. You don't want it to have 50-foot branches up in the air with the leaves up there. You want it lower.
For drought tolerant, I would recommend jujubes. Once they're established,
They're hard to get a hold of here. And they're harder to graft. That's what I've gotten from listening and observing different people.
Jujubes grow fairly easily from seed, but there is a specific technique on breaking the husk or the hull of that seed. I have several seedlings that I, started, but you have to very carefully remove the shell from that seed.
I just get the invasive roots that are sprouting up in the yard and dig them up and then graft them.
Have you had any luck with getting good sources for the cyanwood for jujubes?
At some of the meetings, people have brought them in. There's a few people that have different scions. What are you looking for?
Well, I'm just looking as a general and a source, because like on our members, we're having the members when they sign up, give us a list of what plants they have and also what plants they're looking for. This way, if they had the varieties listed of what they have, we could identify, okay, this person has let's say in orange has jujubes and they have 3 different varieties. Okay, cool. Maybe someone else has another variety they may want, and someone else needs some of those other varieties. So it's better to have a local source for cyanwood than a source where you have to order it from outside the state.
I know
Yeah.
a member in the Orange County chapter with several varieties, but I better not mention a name unless I have permission to.
Well, you probably need permission from the person to give their name publicly on something that could be on YouTube. So,
Well, this member
Yeah.
doesn't do YouTube.
well, no, that doesn't matter for them. Oh, and when you mentioned about the freezing the frame on a table, that works in the table as long as the table's scrolling up and down. But if it's within a web page as a solid sheet, then freezing the row doesn't help.
You see, I thought you might have been using an Excel spreadsheet with Google Docs.
It's a spreadsheet, but it probably already has the first rows frozen so they don't move when you're scrolling up down on your computer page of just the sheet. But when it's embedded in a web page, then that's different.
Sure.
You lose a little bit of functionality there. So we're always trying to go between functionality and usability and all that stuff. So, and then someone mentioned in the comments, I would use citrus like that I like to eat while waiting for the citrus to get big enough to graft. Cindy, what is that? I'm confused.
Someone asked about citrus rootstock from seed.
Yeah,
So I'm trying to figure out what citrus seed I could grow that I could graft on. And so, you gotta wait for it to grow, and it would have to be big enough so you can graft something on it.
well, yeah, but you can have most seedlings could be grafted within the first year or two. Heck, we're grafting the avocados that are probably less than a year old.
Yeah, but I was thinking more like what you do with your tree, make it into a mother tree. Then you have all different varieties on it. Then it would have to be several years old, right?
Well, yeah, because you want the seed, for a long-term tree, it's more established, but if you're gonna graft it, you want it to grow from a seed, make it so it's stable, okay. Then you do it just before, or just as it's getting into the active growth phase. and then graft onto it, and then that grows and starts putting out leaves, and then it grows, and then okay, and then later when it's, you take a branch of it and you graft onto that another variety, and then there's two varieties on the tree. If you graft multiple varieties at the same time when it's small, it's a lower success rate, and it seems to stunt the plants, because all the ones that are pre-done like that don't seem to be very big. I have one that's the smallest citrus tree in my yard, that probably has a diameter of the trunk of maybe 2.5 inches. The one, my grapefruit in the front yard, which was planted at the same time, or maybe even later, that actually has a diameter of about 7 to 8 inches. So tend to stunt the stuff when they do that when it's young. But if it gets a little older, they can add the other ones. Just do it in stages. Okay, so Jesse asked, what's drought tolerant and or hardy or vigorous growing? I'm not sure what the conjecture or the question.
Still the citrus
What?
question. So it's still the citrus question. Do you go for a citrus that's drought tolerant or?
Okay. Ideally, if you could get rootstocks from citrus, which part of the citrus thing has been all messed up since the citrus disease, where not as many entities can sell the stuff, so a lot of entities stop doing stuff, so it's not available. But in a perfect world, you'd be able to get a rootstock that's specific to your soil conditions, that's better for that. May work better in a basic soil or acidic soil or wet soil or dry soil or sandy soil. But right now in citrus, that's not really as available. So that's why it's a little vague on there. And if you're going to do it, you almost have to grow from seed locally on your seed you plant and hope that seed's rootstock is pretty strong for the soil. And typically a lot of people go with a bigger seed versus smaller seed if they're going to plant something like that, just because they seem to be stronger for some reason. Sorry, I can't give much information on it, but that's just what the things are. And in Florida, you're not even allowed to graft citrus trees. It's actually, since the citrus disease, it's actually outlawed. Okay, so Raymond put about citrus roots, citrus sweet scions do not work well on bitter rootstock like lemons. There are sweet lemons, by the way. We have one. And but it's generally lemons and oranges are a little different from each other. So grafting on one versus the other, it will work, but it will work better if you graft a lemon to a lemon or an orange to an orange. So
Is it the taste that's becomes affected if you do that?
I haven't seen the taste really affected on our trees, but you do notice a slower growth when you graft like a lemon on a citrus on an orange and vice versa. And Jesse, did you ask about the outlawed grafting in Florida? Unless you're authorized by the state, like a nursery is not allowed for citrus. Because of the citrus disease, they actually outlawed grafting because the citrus disease was spread rampantly in Florida. This is when the first thing they saw was, we have a bunch of citrus trees dying. We don't understand why. So they were trying to figure out why, and eventually they figured out that it was a bacteria. At first they thought it was a virus, and then it determined that it was a bacteria, and they finally figured out how the life cycle is that does it. And part of the reason it spread so fast in Florida is people were sending cuttings from one part of the state to another. So they would send a cutting to a tree, and since it had the disease in it, the new tree they grafted it on got the disease, and then it was spreading throughout there. Some of the insects didn't have it, the citrus in the area did not have it. Then they bit the tree that now has it, and then that spread it around that area. So it caused the whole statewide, before they ever knew what was going on, it was across the state. And one of the propagation method of grafting, they determined one of the high level spreaders of it across the state. And then they said it was illegal. In California, they didn't do that because it was, they were basically ready for it since Florida had messed up so bad.
Frank, I'm reading on the internet, California Food and Agricultural Code Section 5803 is unlawful for any person to bud, graft, or otherwise propagate or grow any citrus. And it goes on about that.
And that's in
So,
California?
Yeah,
Do you have can you post the link in the chat?
just 5803 is what I'm seeing it for California Food and Agricultural Code Section. I'm not, I don't know if I can post the link, but I can give you the section in the chat.
Well, you should be able to do the link.
I'm not very, very good with,
Okay.
with that sort of thing, sorry. But I'll put the code section.
Because depending on the context of it can affect what they mean. And, you know,
In violation of these regulations or to sell as nursery. It's basically just saying you can't grow citrus unless it's, I guess, nursery stock that they've already inspected from the CCP program.
well, that it's, I think it's part of another thing. Because when you're reading that, it talks about these regulations. Grafts and buds from plants generally infected. So this is talking about plants that are already infected. So
Maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but it seems like it's basically, are you looking at the code section as well?
well, I'm looking at it, and this was a 2019 code, and it has to do with plant quarantine and pest control. So I would, without going through the whole technical thing on it, I'm betting that it's talking about infected plants. You're not allowed to graft infected plants. And that's what it's describing there. Because California,
I read the code quite a few months ago, and I was pretty surprised by it. And I read it through, and it didn't seem to say anything about infected plants, but maybe I missed that.
yeah, because that's what I'm looking at. It's the title above it. I'm looking through law.justia.com, and it's mentioning grafted plants, you know, generally infected. So I'm pretty sure that basically has to do with the quarantine, you know, if you're in a quarantine zone or your plants are infected. Which makes more sense. And
You may be right. I was just looking for clarification on what I read.
yeah, it's basically with the quarantines, you're not supposed to move. The law regarding the quarantine is you're not supposed to move plants, graft them within the quarantine zone. And a lot of people confuse that between a quarantine zone is quarantine zone of the plants, so you can move them within the quarantine zone. No, you're not supposed to move them anywhere within the quarantine zone. Anywhere within or without So it's, we went over quite detailed when we were just, I was discussing that with the people at the CDFA regarding the citrus disease. Because there was a lot of stuff that was confusing, because most of the stuff on the citrus disease that the CDFA put out was all in Latin, you know, or so boring I'd read 3 lines and fall asleep. And there's actually 3 different variations of the citrus disease, the HLB. There's African, Asian, and American, which is American is actually referring to South America. And it has a lower, that one and the African one have a different temperature range where the bacteria is more viable. Whereas the one we have, the Asian one, has a wider range. And so where's the, trying to find the chat. Okay, so let me back here. Okay, I'll go back to the website thing. Let me see, that was the, okay, I went. Went there. One of the videos is ordering citrus budwood from the CCP. One thing about, let me talk about ordering budwood in general, or cyanwood. Like when you order mango cyanwood, you have to get it as soon as possible. Like you want next day shipping, and you want it to be cut that the day before, you know, so the day it's shipping is the day it's cut, because the longer it's been cut, the higher failure rate is going to be. And you can't refrigerate mango cuttings. And you also don't want mango cuttings probably to be shipped in a heated vehicle, because I'm pretty sure getting at 110 degrees in the, or 140 degrees in the back of a UPS van is not going to help the cyanwood. So when I order stuff like that, including the stuff from the CCP, Citrus Clonal Protection Program, I have it shipped to the local FedEx office, because they ship by FedEx, and I'll have it shipped to the local FedEx location, which luckily for me is about a block from my house. That way, when it's delivered there in the morning, usually before 10, and then it's kept into the air-conditioned building instead of the heated van in a random time to get delivered during the day. And usually they're okay with that, because that's how they have the stuff set up. So if you're ordering that stuff, keep that in mind, and saves a lot of headaches later. So let's see here. Okay, on Jesse, on the quarantine, anything south of or Alton Parkway is out of the quarantine. That I wouldn't stay with, because they found him in Fallbrook. So whether or not it's visually been updated or anything, they've had the insect in a number of areas. And a lot of areas they're not testing as much because of cutbacks. So I wouldn't take it and say nothing below it is out of the quarantine. It's just, it hasn't been officially updated yet. So, and it is spreading, and it's still spreading, but just slower, because they were doing the testing and trying to catch areas with it. You know, they have the insect traps out. If they detected it, they would go around that area and check all the trees and then destroy them. But even then, it's very difficult to keep control of an insect that in 45 to 47 days gives 400 to 600 offspring. And they're tiny, and they travel about a mile, up to a mile and a quarter on their own. And if it's a windy day, they can travel a lot farther than that. So, and yeah, I had a lot of those discussions with the people at the CDFA and stuff, because you know, you want to know what's going on, and that's the reality of it. So. Do you have a lot of citrus trees, Jesse? Oh, and the question regarding, what city are you in, Jesse? See, isn't that? Let me see where isn't. In a second, let me see where. Okay, so I was looking where your Paris is at. I would have a plan B lined up as well for your planting because even though you probably, I'm just thinking of your area and the climate that it'll probably take a little longer for it to get there, but it will get there at one point. And when you take out the plant, if the insects can feed on other plants, maybe not as happily, and out of 400 to 600 offspring, 4%, which then would be, what is that? 16 to 24, 16 to 24 of its offspring in its life will have the disease without having to bite a plant. They would just carry it directly from the parent. So it would continue regardless if there was a plant that would carry the bacteria. So then that's assuming you took out the plants and then brought them back in 2 years later, you would still have a good chance of getting infected, reinfected with even with the new plants. So is there any other plants that can grow in your area? Oh, you have avocados growing too. Have you grafted any of the avocados yet? Or were they grafted already? Let's see. Okay. Keep in mind, sometimes even if you buy them from grafted from somebody, the rootstock may have taken over. We have a list of all the varieties of avocados that Julie Frink had compiled in a very long, very, very long list. You're looking at the screen. We just passed the A's. It's better to do a search for stuff on this. Yeah, I had on the avocado, I had an avocado from Laverne Nursery that had the graft failed and then the rootstock actually took over next to it. So when you're looking at it, you think, oh, it's grafted and functioning, but then you see the graft piece is still there, the piece of dead wood. And if I ever went to Laverne Nursery, I'd have made them replace it because I still have it with the tag on it and everything. Just want to make sure so it doesn't see a problem in the future. And also on these avocado trees, since you have 30 of them, one method I recommend for keeping track of what variety you have is take a metal aluminum can, you do the aluminum can thing, you indent into the aluminum, put a hole in it. But how I attach it is I do a piece of copper wire and I wrap it, tie it to the aluminum, and then around the tree, I just wrap it in a spiral around a branch. So it's, if you can see my hand, here, I'll use this computer cable. So let me get something. Okay, here. So if I have a branch, I would do a copper wire like this. So it's a spiral around it. Okay, just push it together like this. This way, when the plant grows and expands, if you forget to loosen it up, it'll stretch, it'll bend back out. And it'll still retain on the plant. And also I'd recommend getting a couple of them on the plant at different locations in case one falls off. It'll save you time later knowing what's there. And you might consider even doing a Excel spreadsheet and just grid out the yard and figure where each plant is and save that to track when you planted it. And it may seem like it takes a long time, but it comes handy in the future because you may forget the stuff. But and also, instead of an Excel spreadsheet, Google Sheets work pretty good because Google Sheets are not on your computer, it's remotely stored on Google system. So if your computer crashes, you still have it. Versus an Excel spreadsheet that's on your computer and you're keeping the file and juggling it, trying to find it. Whereas if it's in the Google Sheet, which has pretty much the same functionality for most people as an Excel spreadsheet, you can search for certain words and find the document easily and quickly because their system is geared for speed. Whereas if it's on my computer, Windows is searching for the word in the file, and it can take a while, especially if I have a large drive. And one of our members actually has, not one of the CRFG members, he has over 53 varieties of avocados. Let me see. Yes. I'm scrolling. I've just scrolled down the comments again. Oh. This. Yeah, Kevin. I think it's Kevin. I think it's Kevin at the Laguna Hills Nursery. He's a member of our chapter too. He has some bunch of avocado varieties. He wants to. I think he wants to open his own nursery at one point. How many varieties of avocados do you have within those 30? Let me switch back here because I. Charlie, there was a question about pawpaw earlier. Since you know more about pawpaw, can pawpaw, It sort of sounds funny saying that, can pawpaw. Can pawpaws handle 110-degree weather?
Have we had 110-degree weather here in Orange County?
Well, you're toward the coast, a little, you're in Newport
Yeah.
Beach.
I know a few years ago when you put out the alert a few days in advance, I think it got up to 107. I mean, my trees are healthy. They have not died. If you know the weather's coming, I would definitely try to give it some water, maybe a little more water than usual.
But do you think it would have any problem surviving in that?
Well, if it's a mature tree. And that's the thing. My trees are 25, 30 years old, so they're definitely mature trees.
Okay. So we addressed that question. Okay, 15. Yeah, about 15 varieties. And then how did you choose the varieties you wanted of avocado? Okay. So did we? Let's see. Hey, since it's toward the end of the meeting, does anybody want to see how easy it is for us to edit the web page? Jesse, have you spoken to Julie about avocado varieties? Let's see. Let's-
Because you could spread it either, so I use this is white.
That was our sign exchange. Let me try this again.
Spray this, I'm gonna spray it.
Give me a second. Yes. Oh, that's wrong. H. Okay. Okay, let me get this out of here real quick. Okay, so I'm gonna go make a new page on the web page. We duplicated Gary's from the Good Host Nursery website. So I'm gonna go add a new page. So like add new. Okay, first I'm gonna add a title and let's say okay, let's say citrus. First CITS. Okay. So now this is the this represents basically what the web page address would be on the internet, you know, let's say lagoonahillsnursery.com/citrus. Okay. So then I'm going to add a title that people see. So let's say I'm going to make it a heading. And now I'm going to choose first centered. And now I'm just typing in the stuff. This is just like using a word processor. Citrus. See, you know, you can choose. This is your normal stuff like how are you going to have this stuff displayed? One of them is for color or something. There's the color there, text background. If it's a link, what color it's going to be. But for my purposes, that's all I want to do is okay, so I publish it. This is basically saving it. Now I'm going to add it with this thing here. Okay, now here's the page. Okay, this will come up in a sec. And I'm going to go here. Okay. So first I got to determine how many columns I'm going to have this. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4, a mini or whatever. I generally go with these first three. I don't go with 4 because then it gets harder to work with and harder to see for people. Maybe if I was doing a bunch of pictures or something. But let's say, okay, 2. Okay, so now I'm going to go here. Now, this is the general formatting. Now I need to determine what is going to be in there. It's going to be an image, just a button or a video or something. So usually I go with the text one. So I drag this little, looks like a paragraph over. And I got to go back here and do it for the other one. I rarely use just the image one because I can just do the same thing in a text thing anyway and have more control. Okay, so I go here. So you can type here, but it's not really designed to be typing in that area. It's this side that you type in. So I'm gonna type it and go, let's say I'm making this a category. So let's say orange trees. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is let me go enter one row. Okay, so I'm putting this here. Now I want to make it centered because I'm going to make it a subheading. So I'm going to make this normally the heading for the page is 2, and as the number goes higher, it's actually lower. Yeah, I mean smaller in size. So let's go with number 4. Okay, so I did that. See how that's size wise. Now I go, okay, so I'm here. Now I type in our suite. Okay, so there's suite. Okay, now if I want to, I can even add a picture in here. So now I just go here and I go add media. Now these are pictures I saved before, if you click upload files, you do that and go to your computer. So, but let's go with the ones I already uploaded. Let's say this cat, which happens to be Gary's cat that I did an OCR or background removal. Okay, so there's his picture. Okay, don't click here, you click here. Now, if you look, there's little icons here, and this has to do with changing how text is forming around an image. If you look, you can see the image is to the left side and text flows around it on the right-hand side. This one's line center, but it doesn't seem to have words around it, so I think it just centers the image. This one is image on this right side with text on the left side forming around it. So if I had more words, let's first pick this one. Okay, so let's just add a bunch of words. Whatever. Okay, so let me get this to go in here. Well, actually, I'm above it. So let me go to this area and I'll move the image of the cat. Okay, so it's a little hard to see or do. Okay, so I'm moving it. Now I'm moving it here because I had to drag the edge. Okay, see, you can see how the words are forming around it then. So if I go here and type in the words, and this size will differ between a cell phone, a tablet, or whatever. And it's harder on this laptop I'm using. But one of the options on the screen is showing you which version of, if it's on a computer, tablet, or whatever, you'd be able to see the difference. So here, let me get back here, just edit. I can't see the thing I normally see because part of the screen is obscured on my end because of the Zoom thing. I can't see the bottom part of my screen. But okay, so let's say, okay, I did this and I'm happy with whatever. You have to click update, which is basically save. So right now, the test website I made, let me is LH dot so this is the website I made the other day, duplicating his and enhancing it. I added a lot of functionality to it that his didn't have. This right here is a spreadsheet that's embedded in the website. So if he made changes to that spreadsheet, he just opened his web browser, made changes to it, it would show up here. So he could do a bunch of stuff here. This was replacing his newsletter sign up. And I added his soil stuff in there too. Okay, let me move. I'm fighting the Zoom stuff. But here's his soil. But I didn't add the citrus thing to the menu yet, but this is the page that I just added a minute ago. So I could easily have added content to it. See, I'm back to the dashboard, and then I would go through and add it to the menu. This controls Oops. Okay, let me. This controls how stuff is in the menu system. Like here, I added citrus. So. Oh, okay, it's added as a, here's, I added citrus here. There's the citrus, and I can add it to the menu here. And it's it'd be at the top of the screen now on that test website of theirs. Yeah, as soon as I click save. So if I went to so yeah, citrus is there now. And it only took a few minutes to add the web page and content. You know, I could have copied and pasted stuff in there. So even doing the one here, this page right here, excluding these two things, the embedded spreadsheet and the embedded form, this entire page could be made in about 10 minutes. If that. Most of the time would be taken is to just reformatting, highlighting, changing a font size or whatever to make it how you like it. Anybody have any questions about that? No programming was needed. You didn't have to know how to program anything. You just visually see what's happening and make the changes and know which part of the screen to work with, because a lot of times you tend to go toward the center where it's showing you visually what it looks like when it's actually the left-hand side. Charlie?
I'm here.
Yeah. So could you see that okay?
I'm sorry, I'm actually working my jobs work. I'm working with Excel pivot tables.
Okay, well, I was showing how to make a web page.
I've been listening to you.
So, but you didn't see it.
I did not watch, no. I'm sorry, we have a customer who is hammering our system, complaining that it's slow, and I'm doing some analysis to see what the heck they're actually doing.
Oh, okay. Well, Jesse had a question. That's all it is to make a web page. You make changes like font, you know, position of stuff, but it's basically that. We're not bothering with putting in somebody will embed like a video that's running all the time. That takes up resources on both your computer and the server when you're doing stuff like that. And it also distracts from the person using your website, especially since they're mainly wanting information. That's possible to add to this stuff, but I leave it away. And, you know, this is just like using Microsoft Word to make a web page. Oh, Jesse asked, do you have a different login to edit the page? Yeah, you just go to the, for this, you do whatever the website is -WP, because it's WordPress, which is a very common platform to make web pages. Currently, you know, over time, this just changed over, you know, it used to be front page and something else. But you log in, and once you're logged in, you have the control panel of what do you want to do. Typically, you're going to go to pages, add page, or edit pages, make changes there, and then save it. And once you make a web page, then you want to be concerned with how is it searchable on the internet? How do you want it found? do you want contact information for you available on there? Do you want email address, phone number? This way scammers will tend to search the internet for phone numbers, collect a database of phone numbers and start calling them. Same with emails. When your email's on there or your address, then the scammer is going to send you an email saying, oh, we're billing you for something you bought, or they send you a bill in the mail saying it looks like something from the government and you pay it. For a nonprofit, they'll send an invoice saying web design services or something. And then this way, if it's a slightly big nonprofit, but not a super big where they have checks into system, you'd think it was real and pay it. So, but that's different. So any other questions on anything? Okay, I'm going to shut down the meeting now, and then we're going to send an email out in the next couple of days. One of them is going to be on some of the links about driving to the citrus, not the citrus, the sign exchange, and we're going to start we're also going to send out a text document that can be printed as a mini flyer. So it'll print multiple times on a sheet of paper and you just cut into strips and you can give it to people. It'll have a QR code on it so they can scan it and then go to the website for the event registration. Also, on the event registration page, lower on the page is what people have submitted as to what they're bringing. And it's live. As soon as they submit something, it's added to that list. So it's pretty automated.
Jesse, I don't know where you live. You asked about Papa's. And Valerie, you mentioned the Scion Exchange. Frank, did you mention the Orange County chapters in a couple weeks?
Yeah.
Okay, it'll be Saturday, the 21st at the Millennium Barn.
Yeah. We mentioned that earlier.
Okay, I had to come in late.
Yeah, and we mentioned that, and so, but some of the question about the pawpaws we had answered when after you came on.
Well, where does Jesse live? He asked if he said he wanted to grow one. Doesn't know.
Probably in Paris. He might be in Paris.
Oh, Paris. I would tend to think yes. You actually get some cold chill out there, don't you? Yeah, Papa's ought to do well. I mean, they're native to the eastern US. I could tell you where there's a dozen groves along the Missouri River, and they get sub-zero, and they get into the triple digits as well. The thing about the Midwest is they have high humidity, so we tend to have low humidity. So if you know that you're going to get up hot, I would try to, either water the trees or make the humidity high in the canopy so the leaves won't necessarily burn. But when, and again, pawpaws are an understory tree. So where I have mine planted is on the north side of my house, so that I simulate as close as I can to an understory canopy. Yeah, I would shelter them, especially when they're younger. As they get more mature, I mean, my trees are pushing above the eaves of my roof, So they get full sun once the trees get big enough. Yeah, that sounds fine.
Also, what color is your shade cloth? I saw some white shade cloth that the Farm Food Lab in Irvine had gotten. And
I get plenty of pawpaw seeds. One of the things, they're similar to jujubes in that they will periodically send up root suckers. So some of the small trees I have, I cannot tell you whether it's a sucker from a root or whether it was a seed that sprouted. But I have one or two tiny plants that are less than a foot tall. I'm probably approaching the time of year where when maybe, well, actually probably about now is our coldest weather. I should probably think about digging them up and putting them in pots. Is the fruit sweet on the fruit? I'm not sure I understand that. I'm not sure if you know that pawpaws are an Annona. So it is a North American relative of Chirimoya. And it's, to me, I describe it as a smoky banana. And as a native North American fruit, it is the largest. The native North American persimmon is about the size of a quarter to a half a dollar, but pawpaws are the largest of the North American native fruits.
but is your fruit sweet?
Well, do you consider a banana sweet?
Well, banana varies.
Well, it's, I would say, yeah, it's sweet. I mean, it's not sweet like a ripe apricot. But yeah, it's a pleasant flavor.
And have you only have a couple seedlings or plants growing from that you're
I have four trees. Three of them were seedlings. One of them I actually purchased at the Fullerton Arboretum, so I don't know its provenance. What's his name? The guy who lives in Yorba Linda
there's a lot of guys who live in Yorba Linda. It's a big city.
with a big white beard.
Santa. No.
You know who I mean. I can't think of his name. I'm sorry.
Don
Yeah, Don Winterstein. He
Winterstein.
had a grafted variety called Pennsylvania Golden, and he was getting no fruit set whatsoever. He took some scions from my native trees, grafted on his Pennsylvania Golden, and lo and behold, he started getting fruit. He gave me some scions, which I've grafted onto one or more of my trees, and they have given fruit. They're typically just slightly larger than my native trees, but I have seen native trees give humongous pawpaws. So I think it's, I don't know that varieties within pawpaws is that important, but I haven't tasted a large number of varieties. I cannot tell you about Fullerton, whether they still sell. I don't know if the Arboretum still has plant sales. Isabel was working, volunteering at the Arboretum when I purchased my pawpaw, which was maybe 1985, 86. I will tell you, I can always go back to Missouri and dig up some and bring them back. If I can fit them in a duffel bag and get them on the airplane, it's not illegal to do that. But the best time to do it is now when they're dormant. And I have no immediate plan to go back to Missouri.
Okay.
And I feel like I've taken over this conversation. I'll go mute
Well,
now.
no, because you're the more expert on the pawpaws.
Well, there is the guy that gave a talk at our club who wrote a book, and I would suggest buying that book if you want to know about pawpaws.
How many pawpaw trees does he have?
The guy who wrote the book?
Yeah.
Well, that I don't know, but he's traveled extensively around Virginia, West Virginia, so in Ohio. I'm sure he's familiar with where they are.
Let me see.
Do you have a copy of the book? Because I'd have to go in another room and look.
I don't have a copy of the book.
Hang
No.
on, hang on, I'll be back.
Uh-oh. He's coming back. Let me see if I can look up. Oops.
It just says Pawpaw in Search of America's Forgotten Fruit by Andrew Moore, Moore. Oh, where in Missouri? What city? I'm sorry, I don't know where Stone County is in Missouri.
Missouri is MO, isn't it?
MO.
Okay. It's near Branson.
Oh, is it?
It's to the east of Branson.
Okay. Okay. Are you sure east or to the west?
Oh, you're right. West. To the
Okay.
west.
Well, that makes sense. I have actually collected pawpaws a couple counties east of Stone County along the Jacks Fork River. So you had a friend. Is that past tense or present tense? In other words, can you get trees or seeds or fruit?
The chickens like to eat the pawpaws?
Well, the fruit of a pawpaw is not too different from chirimoya or white sapote in that when it gets very ripe, it's quite soft.
Mm-hmm.
We'll arrange a visit. You should, okay, there's two things you should know. I'm going to write. Asimina triloba. You should learn that as the scientific name for pawpaw, and also get on Google and search for, I think it's the University of Kentucky has been doing research that certain parts of the plant, maybe fruit, flowers, leaf tips, growing tips, have some cancer fighting properties. They contain a class of drugs called acetogenins. And it's interesting research what they've been doing in Kentucky. I think Kentucky, maybe Tennessee, but pretty sure it's Kentucky. So does Jesse have no microphone?
I have a microphone. I'm just kind of shy.
Well, you shouldn't be shy. There's only what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us here.
And that's counting you, Charlie.
Yeah. So 3 people, not counting you and me.
But what other plants do you think would grow in Paris, California?
Loquat. How, okay, you said it gets down to 24. The, what is the name of the Wong Farms out by the Salton Sea that grows mangoes? I don't know how cold they get.
I've seen that one. They did one of the fruit growers associations went out there and took a tour, didn't they?
Yeah.
That was us on July 10th.
Yeah, I missed that tour.
I don't know what they get down to, but they have quite a mango production. Jujubes may do well. I don't know about loquats. Again, I don't get down to 24. I think I've gotten down to the mid 40s here, but that's about it.
Yeah, it only hits 24 probably like 2 or 3 times a year, like at 5 or 6 a.m. right before the sun comes up after like after a rain.
Yeah, but with the right plant, you would kill a plant for that.
Yeah, but if you can get a tree big enough, you know, if you make a high humidity canopy around it that night, you know, with misters or things, that might give it some protection.
Yeah, there's a lot of people saying that you really can't grow avocados out there unless they're really cold hardy. But I have some varieties that are not known to be cold hardy. I just kind of planted them kind of closer to another avocado that's cold hardy, and I'm using that shade cloth as a little canopy.
Well, increasing humidity with a mister might help, especially if you were to turn on the mist at say 4 in the morning. If it's warm water, as it freezes, it would release heat, and that heat might protect your tree. Now, I use a mister on my lychee tree, but for a completely different purpose. I use it in the summertime to increase the humidity in the canopy to try to increase my fruit set and to keep the fruit from aborting. And it seems to help.
do you just put like a micro sprinkler inside the canopy or do you have to keep the micro sprinkler on top over the canopy?
Well, I just took I think a 1-inch pipe that I made either 5 or 10 feet long and put, merged it with either a 1/2 inch or a 3/4. I don't remember, but I have a 15-foot length of pipe and an L at the bottom. And I've connected a hose on a timer, and I just put a 360 spray nozzle head on top of it. And in the summertime, maybe 2 times a day, I'll just spritz it for maybe 5 minutes. And it's almost like it's raining.
That's a good idea.
But again, that's for a specific purpose. I probably ought to try something similar for Chirimoya because I think they like a high humidity in their canopy when they're setting fruit.
And some people take, for cold areas, they'll take and put like the old Christmas lights that had the bigger bulbs in them. And they would put a sheet over the tree and, well, at first they put the big lights on the tree, then they put the sheet above the tree, on top of the tree. And then because the lights would make a little bit warmer in the surrounding area and the sheet would help encapsulate it, that would help the tree survive when they have a cold snap like that.
Right.
So,
That can get expensive though with running electricity.
true. But until the trees get grown up enough where they can have their own canopy, and leaves come in, then they're susceptible to a lot of stuff, from sunburn to the freezing stuff. Whereas they might actually survive normally in those conditions if they have the canopy up.
Yeah, if you can get the tree above like the critical 3 or 4 foot mark, that's what seems to be critical for me when we have cold winters.
Yeah, that's what they say about avocados. After about 3 years of age, they can pretty much handle the temperatures or the weather.
Yeah, because in Chile, my wife's family has some avocado trees and they're 30, 40 feet tall, it seems. And they do pretty good during the winters. And even though there's snow on the ground.
That's great.
Yeah, so, and like I said before, conditions vary. And when somebody tries something, they fail and they give up and they say, oh, it doesn't work. But if somebody else tries it 3 times and it's working, okay.
Yeah, that's what I did with the avocado trees. I kind of overwintered them for 2 years and then I put them in the ground. And this is kind of just the first winter that they're going through. But they're doing pretty good.
That's good. And when you planted them, did you dig much larger hole than the pot that they were originally in?
I paid some guy with the tractor to come out and dig a 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot deep hole for each one. And then I lined the hole with some chicken wire for the golfers. And then I planted the trees.
And did you use the native soil back to fill in the hole?
Yeah, I used the native soil, put a little bit of gypsum inside there. And then on top, I added a little bit of some mulch compost. And then I mulched it heavily on top of that, kind of like a reproduction of kind of nature does,
Yeah, that's the correct way. Because a lot of times people do the hole and then they'll use compost mix or planter mix or whatever it is from Home Depot, none of which is soil. All the stuff they carry is pretty much mainly compost. And you don't want to mix that into the ground. So, but on top of the ground is where you should have it. And for you, especially with the cold, it's actually adds another barrier to protect the roots, because the roots are the most important thing. You can't have those freezing. So, oh, also when you do the mulch, you gotta be careful sometimes of getting too close to the trunk. Cause then you can get moisture on the avocado trees and they start rotting.
Yeah, it's pretty dry out there.
Except for right now.
Yeah, except for now.
Yeah, I don't think it's, everywhere it's getting saturated. My front walkway is actually getting, the cement's absorbed water from the ground. And you go out there and there's like water where it's not been rained on. It's just absorbed from the water from the sides and underneath the house a little bit, I guess, or something.
Yeah, the soil out there in Paris is really sandy, and it's more like a more rock in it, like kind of gritty. So
Mhm.
it drains pretty quick.
Okay, yeah, because that's different than the soil here. Most of Orange County is clay soil. And clay soil has its problems of retaining too much water. And then you plant the plant and you think it's going okay, but it's actually in water.
That's DG mostly, isn't it, Jesse?
Yeah, there's a different parts of the property has different soils. But yeah, it pretty much looks like decomposed granite, or parts of it still looks like it's granite. You know, there's big rocks in the property I'll run into all the time. And there's rocks like look like they're just growing out of the ground. But there's also parts of the property that has a little bit of clay.
Curious.
So is there much plants on there before you got it?
Zero plants. It's just a desert out there.
Hmm.
When I was digging, I did find a seashell, so I'm guessing a long time ago that part of the area must have just been part of the sea or something.
Unless a swallow carried the seashell from the sea.
Okay, Frank, now you're getting a little over the top.
Hey,
I
I'm,
can- I
I'm
can,
pulling the Monty Python joke.
I can take you to a place in Northwest Missouri where you will find huge numbers of small sea fossils. The entire planet was underwater at one point in time.
Well, for his soil though, I think over time if he puts more mulch on top of it, eventually it'll help change the soil and get more nutrients in it for better for plants.
Oh, I agree.
And then it'll also help maintain more moisture from evaporation, even though it's hard to do that during the summer, probably when it's hot.
Yeah, the whole backyard's about probably 2.5 acres, and I mulched the whole thing. I actually had was an arbor company that would just come and deliver it. But then I had, I think, one of the neighbors call the code enforcement because supposedly it was trash, and they wanted to fine me $500 or I had to remove everything. But then I appealed it, and I was gonna take them to court, and they didn't want to go to court, so they came and they just told me just go ahead and spread it out. Which I kind of want to just. My whole idea was just to leave the piles so they can start keep decomposing, so I can get richer soil out there. But they didn't let me do that. So the whole property right now is probably covered with a couple inches of
Well,
mold.
there's a problem with you having a pile of it is the pile could get hot enough to actually catch on fire. Anytime you're doing a composting, like they can actually get fairly warm, and the soil companies who make compost usually have to have fire hydrants every 20 feet or something, just because it can catch on fire. And
Where did the tree trimming company dump it? On the street?
No, in the backyard.
I would tell that neighbor to go pound sand. And I would tell any code enforcement the same thing.
yeah, but I'm looking at it from a code enforcement, would view it as a pile of chopped up plant, and
It's not trash.
it may not be considered trash, but I would I'd be more concerned about the potential for fire hazard.
The funny part was that within their own code said, and the actual fire department fire code, it says you're allowed to have a pile up to eye level.
So how high was this? Was this lower than that?
Well, it depends how tall you are.
Yeah, true.
I like it.
Yeah, so see, when you go into court, you're gonna have a guy who's a basketball player come in, and they're gonna come in with somebody's kid who's 8 years old, 5 years old.
Well, I periodically have tree trimming companies dump their loads in my driveway. It takes me quite some time to wheelbarrow the pile into my backyard. I'll let it sit until I am ready to run it through my chipper shredder, which puts it into a more uniform size, a smaller but uniform size, and that's when I disperse it. Now, Frank and I have this ongoing discussion. I've been filling up a hole about the size of a hot tub, and I'm using wood chips to fill it. And so far, I've had no issues. He thinks I'm going to have issues.
Well, and I'm right.
Not yet. So far, things are looking good. I mean, yes, it's slowly decomposing and settling, but I have air pipes in there to get air down to it, just like you do in a Johnson Sioux bioreactor.
Yeah, but when you walk across it, you feel like you're walking across a mattress. It's bouncy.
Well, maybe I should spread a blanket out and invite some girls over.
No, you scare them away. But right now you're probably getting a lot of moisture getting in there because of the rains.
Yeah, and that's a good thing.
So, and I'd be careful about stepping on it because it could be like quicksandy or something.
No, it's not quicksandy.
Well, how many feet deep is it? Wasn't it like 6 feet?
Some places up to 10.
So it's 10 feet. That's a
Some
big
places.
Yeah, no, I'm still against that. I still think it should have been filled with fill soil, then compost on top of it and let it break down and the nutrients go into the ground, not the decomposing matter.
Well, this way I'm hoping any nutrients might go laterally into the clay.
Yeah, but gravity's going to push them down more, and it's at 10 feet deep. It's not as many nutrients that the plant needs because usually the roots are within a few inches of the soil.
No, not for some of my trees.
Yeah, but you may have a feeder, you may have a tap root that goes down deep, but you're gonna have other branches that are going sideways.
Especially if it's avocado, but my lychee definitely has roots that go down at least 6 feet. Big roots, large roots, 4 or 5 inch diameter roots.
Yeah, but those could be feeder roots.
Well, they provide support too.
Yeah, they do, but the other roots are the ones that are actually providing the nutrients, which are closer to the soil.
Yeah, and I've got a big layer of compost on the surface as well.
Yeah,
I'm doing it both, Frank. I'm going both ways. I'm
Mhm.
trying some deep, but I have the entire backyard. I've laid down at least a foot of chips, which have now reduced down to about 3 inches.
Okay,
So I'll be adding to that as time goes by.
okay. So, okay, well, I'm getting tired, so.
And I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, I kept having a problem before the meeting with the computer getting a weak Wi-Fi connection for whatever reason, even though I'm arm's reach to the Wi-Fi antenna. And so I had to hook it up directly to the network, which meant I needed to use a network cable. And then I made used a table, which is a rack, which means I have to stand up while I'm using it. And I'll work on that for the next meeting. But it was funny, I didn't have any problem with Wi-Fi until I connected to Zoom. And it was, you know, when people were talking. So,
I use a cable anyhow, even though I'm 3 feet away from my router, because with a wire, you have full duplex. With wireless, you only get half duplex. So it's a better technology to use the wire.
yeah, just I like to use the laptop and move it around, but I had to do that in the last, you know, in a few minutes of hooking everything up to make it work. Where it was working before, I don't understand why. And it's hilarious that I'm, you know, I can almost reach out and touch it. I'm touching one of the antennas right now, so.
That's
um,
probably something I should tell John Marzolino. When they hook up to Zoom, they should be using a wire so they have full duplex instead of half duplex with wireless.
Well, I used to hook it up wired, and I think I sold them a 50-foot cable for that.
Well, I'm not sure what they're doing, and that's something I should make a note and remind John of.
Yeah, well, I want to find out what happened to their laptop that they said wasn't working anymore.
And I think John has it.
Well,
You-
no, according to one of the guys, the guy who usually speaks at their meetings lately.
Khaled?
No, the other guy.
Oh, Jeff Warner, he might
Yeah,
have it.
Jeff Warner said he had it and he couldn't get to work, and I told him you need to remove the battery. And then he was surprised when I said that. Yeah, because you know, when laptops get older, the battery stops working, and then a lot of them have where the computer won't even turn on because the battery's hooked up. And if you just unplug the battery from the computer and set off to the side, the computer will work.
Hmm. Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, but then he also they might have had Windows doing an update, which takes 5 hours or something. Because they haven't updated the computer in a year, and it wants to do its updates as soon
Right.
as it connects to a network, regardless of what you're doing. And then you sit there and you're like, oh, why is the computer screen blank? Well, it's doing an update. So I don't know, because they didn't let me look at it.
Yeah, I understand.
So, okay, so I'll shut down the meeting because,
All right, well, good to chat with you. And by the way, I did want to talk to you about Pharaoh, but that's a topic for you and me.
okay. And then, Steve Torres, I hope you enjoyed the meeting and learned some stuff. And some of the long-term goals of the club is more educational for everybody, and helping a bunch of people and doing stuff. Okay, thanks.
See y'all.
Good night. Thank you, guys.